going to the bathroom
In the nursing home.
in the nursing home.
That's why he's there, to be safe.
Good evening and welcome to the Georgetown School Committee meeting of Thursday, March 27th. If I could ask everybody to please stand to say our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, before we start the meeting, I would just like to have a moment of silence for the two fallen Boston firefighters that passed away yesterday in the line of duty, Lieutenant Edward Walsh and firefighter Michael Kennedy. Thank you. Okay. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes regular session minutes of March 13th, 2014, executive session minutes of July 25th, 2013, executive session minutes of October 24th, 2013, and acceptance of warrants 39V14 and 40P14.
So moved?
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, Mary Beth, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you guys?
Good, nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. So, what happened at the school? So, National Honor Society had their newly induction the other night. That was nice. I got to play the piano for it on the great new piano that we have at the school. It is beautiful. It's like, you guys, if you have the chance, if you're in the high school, go in the auditorium and see the piano because it's the prettiest thing I've ever seen. And every chance I get, I'm playing. I was there playing it for an hour after school today. So that's wonderful, and Mrs. Aflam really deserves it. So. Yeah, Mr. Malone came, our Secretary of Education, and I got to show him around a little bit. The school, he was very interested in my calculus class with Miss Utter. He loved that, the derivatives that we were doing, he loved it. So that was kind of cool to show him around, and then I got his card afterwards, so I felt pretty important.
She said she's emailing him tonight.
I'm emailing him tonight about UMass Amherst, so maybe little strings, you know. The lacrosse team's first game's next week, and then track Ipswich co-op is next week, and then I don't know about the other one.
We're still hoping the snow goes away and
Right, yeah, it was kind of cold this morning, but then warm right now. Not warm, but like
warmer.
definitely not cold.
So both boys and girls lacrosse start next week?
I'm pretty sure, I know the boys start next week. Yeah, I think they start Friday.
That's good, that's a sign of spring.
Yeah, yeah,
hope
so,
so.
yeah. So, yeah, school is pretty good right now.
That's good.
Everyone's choosing their courses for next year. So
Not you.
that's not me, thank goodness. I'm all done. I've already done that 4 times, so I'm done now. But yeah,
It is a busy time of year with having like
Very
the Pembroke fifth graders move, tour the middle school,
Right.
and then the first graders going over to Pembroke. It's busy with all that stuff, and then the other
Yeah,
kids.
there's a
making
transition
it.
plan in your packet. You probably
Yeah, that's
noticed
fine.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
and
busy.
we also had Chris Herron come talk to
Oh,
us.
that was good.
That was a really. were any of you there?
Yes. I was
And
there.
yeah, you guys saw how powerful it was. I don't think I've ever seen the student body so
Silent.
involved and so just
Well, can you tell us what he was speaking about?
Sure. So he was a Celtics basketball player. He started cocaine and drugs, and the drugs just got worse and worse until he was on heroin. And he came to talk to us about how drugs are a bad choice, and like they don't make sense if you want to do well in life. They just ruin, like they're not good, you know. But there was so much more to his story. He has a video online on YouTube that you can look up, and his story is really, really powerful. And he tried fixing his life, and he never could, but then he finally did, and now he goes around and he he finds, you know, therapy through telling students his story and everything. And he was a great speaker. I've never had such a great speaker come to Georgetown. And the other students thought so too. And afterwards, we all, as a school, you know, every class we would talk about it. And there were some kids who were like personally touched by it. And I saw kids in the guidance office and crying and stuff. And I think it was really powerful and good. And I hope he can come again.
He gave some really good strategies,
Right.
like stuff that, you know, it's tough because you know how sometimes kids will have the impression that you have to, I got your back, you know, I'm not going to tell on you. And he really, I think, made the point very well that the best thing you can do if you're a friend is to tell someone. And he said, I wish someone told on me because my life would have maybe been different. I wish I'd told on some of my friends because they needed help and they didn't get it until, you know, things were far down the road. And, you know, he shared really good stories about, you know, basically his message is you need to believe in yourself, right? So people who go to substances often go to substances because he said he kept saying you should ask yourself, you know, why do I have to care that I'm pretty enough or smart enough? Or, you know, why can't being who you are be good enough? And that, you know, why do you have to feel like you have to be somebody else on Friday or Saturday night with a red cup in your hand? What is that about? And so I think he really got people thinking about just, you know, how do you look at the decisions you're making and think about them through the lens of where is this going to get me? And, you know, and he shared stories about, he said, you know, people in this room, honestly, he said, I've met people in this look just like you, and you wouldn't believe the experiences that some kids have had. Kids are dying because of prescription drugs, because of heroin, you know, and he talked about how he had everything, right? He had everything.
He was on it.
And the fall from grace for him was
Well,
huge.
the governor today declared a state of emergency in Massachusetts because of the drug
Yeah.
problem.
Because of
Epidemic,
opiate
yeah.
addiction,
Opiate
because
addictions, yeah.
140 people have died of opiates.
Yeah, scary stuff.
So I think it's really timely.
It's a tough
stuff.
time to
Yeah.
be a kid today.
Yeah.
And, you know, more of those kind of speakers and messages and, you know, need to resonate. I wrote about it in my blog because I really thought it was really important and I thought it was a very, very touching message and there wasn't a pin drop.
No.
The only other time I've seen that at the high school in an assembly was when the guy came on the internet safety, the guy who spent 3 weeks learning about the Georgetown community.
that was
Remember,
the
he
year
had the
before
fake
I
and he had the
came.
fake guy that came.
Yeah, I heard about it.
That
though.
was really.
How did we get him? How did that?
Peter, how did that come about?
Well,
He was a local guy, wasn't he? Didn't he work locally?
no.
No.
I thought he worked.
I don't know how we originally found out about it.
Chris
a couple years
Herron, I'm
ago,
talking
but
about.
We couldn't afford it. And, so this year we tried, we brought him in, but several clubs kind of combined and
We all
chipped in.
donated.
Uh-huh.
And so we were able to do it. It was pretty expensive, but very worth it.
Worth it.
Very much
But
worth
I
it.
believe the SAD organization they fundraised to get the money for Chris Heron.
Yeah,
Okay.
SAD
He's
Student
Relatively,
Council.
he's a pretty expensive
There are
speaker.
3 groups. SAD was one.
Good value, excellent value.
So 3 different groups?
Yeah, SAD Student Council
SAD?
and
Peer
then
leaders.
peer leaders.
And I
Oh.
think the class, the senior
Student
class.
Council
So
and
that-
senior.
oh,
and-
okay.
So that
That's
says,
important to
that
know.
says
That's
something
wonderful.
about the fact that the impetus came from the kids.
That's what I was
Yeah,
saying.
that's
So the
what's-
kids, that impetus to get him here came from the kids.
Yeah, we all, so,
was your-
my
okay.
friend Vanessa, she's my vice president of student council. She's on SAD, and she's friends with the president of SAD, and they started the idea. They found Chris Heron's video, and they saw how powerful it was. They wanted to bring him, but they knew that we didn't have the money for it. So they talked to us. We donated, I don't know how much, but we donated money from our funds. They talked to peer leaders. We're all students. They wanted it too, so they funded it. And then our senior class advisors as well donated some money, and it was definitely worth it. I think
Yeah,
so,
it
and
was
I think we should write it in our student council's agenda at least to do it again
Right,
next
to
year.
Yeah.
Definitely be open to donate some more money.
His is a story that I think almost everybody can find a piece in that is about them.
He made it really relatable to
He
children.
did, very relatable.
It was
That
like-
the word I use on my blog, relatable.
Yeah, because he talked about being an addict and being a basketball player, and he was talking about his adult life, but he would connect it to being a teenager, and that's the only way that we're going to really understand. And he said, Friday nights when you're in a basement, and, that's teenagers, like, they will do that. And there were kids in that room who were thinking of their Friday night, you know. So he made it relatable
Yeah, he did.
to everyone, and I just thought that was great.
And he didn't deliver it in a lecture format. It was more just a story. Real stories, touches of reality,
Right.
You know, he talked about as a teenager how he drank and he smoked, and, you know, he and his friends didn't think that it would lead anywhere else, and, you know, you hear that it's a gateway drug, and he didn't think that it was, but he said, you know, in his later years of addiction, and he knew people who were addicted to opiates and heroin, they all started with drinking and smoking. Not one of them skipped over those steps. So he
Right.
said, forget the statistics, the studies. Are they gateway? Yes, they are. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It was good.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank
I
you.
mean,
Mary-
Rebecca, Mary Beth. I
teenagers.
do that to her
Now
all the
you do
time.
it as a joke.
I do. No, I wish I could say it's a joke. I just don't, it just pops out of my mouth. Oh, God, I'm gonna get it right, Mary Beth, before you graduate.
Well, good.
Promise you that.
I look forward to it.
Promise you that. You're a good sport.
Okay, is there anyone here from the public that would like to talk about any of the items on the agenda tonight? Okay, we're going to move along to Tyler Polston.
Come on up, Tyler. Yeah. Tyler is a music teacher at the, in case you haven't met him.
Yes, I haven't had the pleasure. Hi.
Yeah, so
Nice
sit
to
right
meet
down
you.
at the table there,
Good
Tyler.
to
Make yourself
Sure.
comfortable.
Welcome.
They don't bite, it'll be fine.
Be with you guys.
So Tyler, the packet of the information that you gave us is in the packet. People have had a little bit of a chance to review it, but is there any highlights that you wanna
Just as an overview, the 5th grade band at Pembroke is going to go to a music festival on May 23rd, which is a half day for Georgetown schools. Because we are an out-of-school activity, we weren't able to get permission to go during the school day. But fortunately, the music festival does offer a day on May 23rd for us to be able to go. So it's a good opportunity for our students in the band program to be able to go and be evaluated by some professionals in the music education field currently teaching on their performance, about what they're doing, and then they'll spend some time with the clinicians talking about, you know, how to make things better, what music can do for their lives, and things like that. What we're requesting approval for is another component of that music festival as a kind of a celebration, is that the students are given a ticket to go to Canopy Lake Park, which we are wanting to kind of go on a Saturday in June, which I believe is the second Saturday in June,
Yeah.
for us to go to the park after, as kind of like a celebration for all of our accomplishments for the year, and being able to practice these 2 songs that we have to perform for the judges, and being able to go there. We're going to be going to North Andover Middle School to play for the judges. Right after school is out, we're getting on a bus and going straight there. We'll play for the judges, they'll spend some time with them, and then just kind of as a wrap up for our year as a 5th grade type of thing, we want to be able to give them a celebratory type of thing for them to be able to do. We'll also, while we're in the park, we'll spend some time talking about some things that kind of reflecting on the year, what, you know, and going forward, and what keeping the kids involved and engaged in music. It's something that hasn't been a part of the Pembroke band program, and something that I want to have as like a capstone for them to be able to go and be assessed. The big word in all of our school coming down is assessment, and it's very hard to assess music. So this is one of the great opportunities that we have a chance to be able to go and be assessed. So we are asking for approval to go technically out of state to New Hampshire to Canopy Lake Park on that Saturday.
So the 30 children, do you already have, like, you pretty much know that it's gonna be 30, and then you have the 4,
Yes, we were given,
Parents going.
yes, we were given 3 tickets. It's already included in our cost for parents to go, and then we received 2 complimentary tickets for additional chaperones and for myself. So those parents will be going along, and then we are taking the 30 students as well. We have funding secured, pledged from the PTA for our school district, as well as the enrichment program is contributing some money, as well as the Georgetown Music Parents.
I know, I thought that was so nice that all three
Mhm.
organizations
Really nice.
Yes, I
helping out.
kind
That's
of
great.
was talking to all those people at one time, saying, "All right, we have they're giving some money." So I wanted to make it a collaborative effort, and it shows that a lot of our organizations in our community and in our school are willing to come together and support a good initiative like this.
That lowers the cost for the kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's important.
Oh, it's
And
a
we
fun
want-
day.
Yeah, and we wanted to
Yeah.
make it a celebratory experience, and that they can enjoy, and not a financial burden.
Is this one time only because this opportunity happens to fall on a day that's already a half day in Georgetown? Or do you think it's something that would be?
That's for this year, yes. There's a lot of changes in my mind, some things that I kind of want to change going forward. I do want to make it some type of assessment or some type of music festival that our programs can go to, especially when the new school opens, getting sixth grade band down into Pembroke. We want to be able to have that instruction during the school day so that we can be able to
Right.
go and be a part of music festivals and additional assessments, and the kids can be a part of solo and ensembles. It just opens up a lot of opportunities, but because right now it is after school, it kind of it does. We're trying to make it work.
So something
this year.
will have to change next year.
Yeah,
Most
and
likely.
I'm just trying to take some baby steps, introducing it to the school committee that it's a good idea, in the school system, so that next year we
I
can.
have a third grader I'm gonna hear all about this from.
Oh, yeah.
Who's gonna wonder if she gets to do this when she's in fifth grade. So
Yes,
that's
it's one of those things. We want it to kind of be like a capstone. If kids join in fourth grade, they're in at fourth, fifth, and
Right.
sixth at the new school.
Right.
Just kind of as accumulating experience for the kids
Right,
to be
that's
able to
great.
go and do that.
It reminds me of the chorus going to Six Flags, and that's everyone talks about that every year. I'm so excited to go. So
It's very motivating, yeah.
Yeah,
My son
it
in the
is, 'cause
chorus too,
it-
and he loves singing and he loves being in the
Yeah.
chorus, but that trip is, you know,
Right,
Yeah.
on
right.
his mind.
it gives you something to work for, having
Yeah.
having to sing in front of
Yes.
judges.
We want that to be kind of like the icing on top of the cake, but we really want the kids to get the experience to, know that this is a good experience for them to be evaluated by people and to go and like step out of their boundaries and things like that.
I think it's great.
Yeah, it's good, it sounds like a fun day.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay, so the chair will entertain a motion to approve the fifth grade trip to Canterbury Lake Park on June 7th, 2014, as presented.
So moved.
Second?
Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do I have to make a separate motion, though, to, for them to go to the
The music
music?
festivals
Because
in
it's
state.
In-state, this
Oh,
is
okay,
because you
so
have a
just-
policy
okay.
about
All right, I
out-of-state
was
field
thinking
trips.
because it was after school, so that's why I was thinking, okay.
Right.
Good, have fun.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, Tyler.
I'll report back.
Thank you.
Oh, good, we'd love to
looking
hear it.
forward to hearing about it.
That's fun.
So what if we do and then,
Okay.
I don't know where the board of selectmen,
Margot, do you wanna come on up? Oh, he's not here yet.
but I think,
Hi,
Hi,
how are you?
good, how are you?
Good, nice to see you.
You too.
Hi, how are you?
I would just, so I'm president of Georgetown Music Parents, and we are trying desperately to raise a lot of money to buy new uniforms. The uniforms the band wears are 42 years old, and they're
Oh my goodness,
And-
42?
yeah, and they've
42
been,
years old.
they've been nipped and tucked many times, right?
They're not in good shape.
No.
Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
When you get those cleaned every year, how much does that cost to get them cleaned? Like roughly?
I don't know.
And
The
your,
school
your,
pays
orga-
for it? To
Uh-huh.
have, the school pays to have
your
the uniform?
organization, I would think, does, right?
Yeah, it's over 1,000. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I would
Yeah.
think so.
And it's hard
I
to
don't
clean
Yeah.
uniforms that fall
Yeah,
apart
yeah,
on
they,
you.
yeah, they don't.
I
look-
was in
they don't
band in
look
high
clean.
school. We had to show up
Even
with
after
clean
dry
uniforms.
cleaning.
So if you got your uniform dirty when we played, you took it to
Oh,
the
you
dry
took-
cleaner on
yeah,
your parents'
yeah.
dime, or your dime, I guess, if you
But
worked.
the new
Yeah, they look
uniforms are
beautiful. The new
really
uniforms.
nice.
Oh, I'm sure.
They're really, really sharp.
But they're
Yeah.
expensive.
Well, what did they figure for per?
400, I think, right? 450?
About 425
Yeah, I was
per
gonna say
uniform
about-
with everything, yeah.
It's everything, the little tassel
Yeah,
things
it's
and
a-
the flumey
yeah,
thing.
No,
and-
yeah,
It's
yeah,
everything.
Might
yeah.
as well get everything.
Yeah,
right?
actually, yeah.
it is expensive.
So
It
it's,
is
so
really
it's
nice.
expensive. So the the reason I'm here is because we have this opportunity with the Modern Woodsman Fraternity, and we have to run a fundraiser that they approve of, and they will match funds for us. And so we've come up with a raffle, and I would like permission to have the band students sell raffle tickets.
That's Joe Susie's group.
That's right.
Yeah.
And
We're very
Joe
generous.
helped, that group raised money with the wrestling team and then matched that fund, and then they're helping with the trees in front of Pearlie, so,
Yeah,
you know, I
they
think
do
they're
something
trying,
good
you
every
know,
year,
yeah,
yeah.
I think that's part of their
And
fraternal
we feel
mission.
lucky that he picked us this year.
Yeah.
So he went to you? He
Yes.
came to you, wow, that's
Yeah,
nice.
yeah.
How are your efforts going with the, with raising the funds through the town-wide fundraiser, through the bills? Is it the electric bill?
Yeah, through the
The
electric,
water bill,
it was through the electric bill. That was my first effort.
okay.
I think that raised about 6,000.
Okay.
Oh, that's good.
And then we've got some other donations. I mean, we're up to about 20,000 so far of what we've raised.
Okay.
So we're,
So I was just looking at Heather for a minute, because one of the things we got of the salad bars through this website, was that just food service stuff, or could that be for any, getting help?
The money that I received was specific to salad bars.
Okay, because was it on a website that allowed you to have different topics, or was it just that?
Unfortunately, it was
Okay.
limited only.
Because I think there are, like what Heather got with the salad bars, is that she just put up that she was looking for donations for it, and then just one company just said, fine, we'll give you the money. So I think there must be other avenues like that.
yes, we are looking.
Yeah, so I'm just suggesting that might be something you might wanna think about, because there might just be, you know, groups out there that might say, we'll give you $20,000 toward this, even though we don't have kids in the school.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
there are
Could be.
philanthropic people who
Yes, I know.
love to take on
We are
causes
looking
like
for
this.
them,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. If I find out any, I'll definitely point them in your direction.
Yeah, there was one, and I can't remember the name of it right now, that I had to have a teacher do because they wouldn't let me in. It had to be a teacher.
Yeah, there are some
Um,
for teacher supplies, you know, teachers can say they want this for their classroom, and somebody can just
Right.
say, oh, yeah, I'll donate the money.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, you're doing a great job.
yeah, it's a hard work, it's hard
It
work.
is, it's hard, and
Gonna be
42
worth it,
years,
though.
that's a long time to have the same uniforms. But what I understand, 42 years ago, the town paid for
Oh, I
those
don't know.
uniforms.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the school paid some and the town paid some, yeah, and
Like
the
50-50 matching.
and there was band parents back then, but yeah, the town definitely contributed.
I heard a couple of grandparents in the audience the night of the concert, and one grandfather in front of me was saying, I'll buy one. He's like, but I want it stitched in the back, gifted by, for my grandson. It was funny just listening to him talk to his wife about it. He's like, I'll give him the money, but I just want, it to say my name on it.
What I found fascinating when I was looking at the.
Well, we will do that if he donates
Yeah, there
$450.
you go.
Geez, I wish I knew that. I could have said, hey.
I did notice as I was looking at the uniforms, because I always wondered, like, how do you figure out, like, when you get a uniform, how does it, one year you might need a lot of bigger ones, another year you might need a lot of smaller ones, but it's fascinating, the different ways they build in
Oh, yeah.
the places where it
Oh,
can
yeah.
lower it and, make it, make the hem bigger or lower, or, the just all around the uniform is this really it's really fascinating how it's ingenious.
And they all look really good when the
Yeah,
kids wear them.
Yeah.
too.
But that's how they do it. It's not like everybody stitches it with a hem. There are these provisions, in the uniform that accommodate for different sizes,
I wonder if a local
which is probably
bank
why it's expensive.
or insurance agency might be interested in making a donation.
Well, I think they're
I'm looking.
working in that direction too.
I'm working on a lot of things. I'm just here to
You
ask
just
if we
want,
can
you
sell-
just want
I
to
just
make
wanna
sure the
sell-
kids can sell the tickets.
I just want to know if the kids can sell some
popped
raffle
in my head,
tickets to
They
their
can.
friends.
Yeah.
So this will be during school.
Yes.
Yeah.
This reminds me of that wonderful musical, The Music Man. Do you remember?
I love that musical.
And remember in the beginning they didn't have uniforms and
They didn't have any.
instruments and anyways, what you're doing is really wonderful.
Important.
Thanks.
Just don't be Matthew Broderick and cheat us all.
So the chair will entertain a motion.
Right, thank you for the piano.
The chair will entertain a motion to approve the Georgetown Music Parents, along with the Modern Woodsman uniform raffle fundraiser as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good luck.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Then I just realized the local Modern Woodsman Art, they are insurance, that's what they do.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
they are insured.
Okay.
One of the things they do,
That's nice, though, that they're doing that. Okay, superintendent's report.
Yes, do you wanna do that now?
Sure, let's do that.
Okay. So just a couple of
Oh,
quick
wait,
things.
oh, Mr. Luca is here.
Mr. Luca is here, so that's
you
why,
want-
I'm fine to wait till,
What do you think? Do we
Jim,
want- well,
why don't
did
you
we want
come
the
on up?
selectmen here?
well, you know what, they said they were gonna try to make it, I mean, I'm happy to run down and see if they're there.
Can we do that?
Yeah, I can do that, why don't you, maybe we can
Yeah.
pass these around, take one of
We're just
each.
gonna take a
Jim, you
minute.
can come up to the table if you want, what I'm passing out to the committee is the information you sent me.
I'll get you one of those.
And I'll just be right back.
Okay, just one of those. You took one of these, Rob?
I did.
One of those.
Can you take one?
No, are there two?
Yeah, you're supposed to take one.
I'm sorry.
There you go, take one of these two.
You can take one and then the rest are for the selectmen. Okay. Make it up here. Did you get one
And
of
I
these?
didn't take one, no.
Someone going down?
Mike went to get them. So if you want, you know, if you wanna wait a minute, I will do my stuff really quickly,
Yeah,
because it's
sure,
quick.
let's do that.
So, you know, Mary Beth already commented on the secretary's visit. It was a very interesting, you know, whirlwind hour and a half. We got through Pearlie, we got through the middle high school very quickly, and then I made him go to Pembroke for 5 minutes because he was already late for his appointment in Boxford. But he was late for us too, so I felt like, you know, we weren't really being completely unfair, but he was so impressed. And he loved working with the kids. He would go into classrooms and, you know, he'd talk with the kids and, you know, he talked with many of the teachers and, you know, he commented over and over how many really best practices he saw here and how lucky the kids were to have an education in Georgetown. He was really impressed actually with some of the facilities, you know, Pearlie in particular with, you know, the big preschool and kindergarten classrooms and even at the high school, you know, he thought it was a nice learning environment. You know, we did explain we're, you know, hoping to do some renovations for a few things, but, you know, he said he wasn't really focused on the facility, he was focused on the teaching and learning. And he, as Mary Beth said, he was very interested in the different, going into some different classes and, you know, looking at the teaching. So that was great. I mean, it was a snapshot, but, you know, I think it was great for him to be here. I think it was validating, you know, to the staff that did have a chance to talk to him because he was very complimentary. Joe Patella spent the most of the time, you know, there with him. And he commented several times that he was just really impressed with just the feeling that he had about the way people work together here. And in particular, after talking with Joe, you know, really said, you guys are doing something right here in terms of your relationship because, you know, I don't see it everywhere I go. And so I really appreciated Joe taking the time to come and what did they say, Mike? 5 minutes? And, you know, Mary Beth, you know, as soon as we walked into the school, I said to Peter, we gotta get Mary Beth. Then we had to find her.
I know.
Because she was in class.
I felt so
And,
horrible.
But she caught right up with us and right away he said, so what do you wanna tell me about your school? And she had no shortage of good things to share, so that was all very nice. And, you know, I think it's a great thing that he's doing because, you know, so much of, you know, what we talk about is the negative tone in education today in the public. You know, every time you turn around, there's something on the news and it's not positive. Or this whole accountability movement, well, we love to be accountable. The issue is it always seems to start with this premise of, we have to do this because you're not doing something you need to be doing. It's not right the way it is. And what he's trying to do as a Secretary of Education is to be able to go around, take a look at what is going on, so he has something to come back to the right people, the legislators and other people, and say, you know what, let's not assume here that good things aren't going on in public education, because I saw it here, I saw it here, I saw it here. So I think that, you know, putting your time and effort into, and he knows schools, because he was a former superintendent, and he's been in, you know, in the business for a long time. So I think he's looking at it as a way to just inform himself, you know, so he's not participating in that pile-on thing. You know,
Well, I
he-
think it's a good thing when people at the state level actually come down and see what's
Yeah.
happening at
What's
the district
happening in
level.
the
What-
schools rather than just
No,
the
I-
legislative
and we
body.
you know,
In
we
the schools.
invited him to come back again.
Instead of just reading
You know,
about
I
it.
really want him to come back and spend a little time at Pembroke. And so I spoke to his aide, because she keeps his schedule. And, you know, they're gonna obviously they weren't so familiar with the North Shore, which was very interesting to me, but, he said he's gonna come back to, you know, see a couple of other school districts in the North Shore. And I said, well, if you could carve out half an hour, I'd really love you to come back to Pembroke. Because we're really proud of what's going on at Pembroke as well as the other two schools. So he said he'd be interested in doing that. I did follow up with an email, so, because he's, you know, he's coming to the superintendent's roundtable in May. So I said, oh, could you come for like a half hour, you know, before that, and maybe you could, you know, see what's going on at the Pembroke school. But, you know, he's very interested in gathering information, and I applaud that. And so we're very, very flattered to have him and enjoyed his time here. Also, I wanted to bring your attention to the Globe Scholastic Art Competition that happens every year. And one of our really solid programs is our art program, K through 12, but particularly this focuses on the achievements of our high school students. And I love when I go into the Mill High School, and right in that, before you go into the office, there's always student artwork displayed there. And I think it just adds so much to the feeling of the warmth of the school. But I did put in here the list of the students who actually received the gold key. There were, and what they did to receive it, what category it fell into. So we had some students who received multiple medals, gold key, silver key, and actually, the gold key winners, I think I put in your packet a picture of one of them. The gold key folks contributed to an art show that was on display for several weeks at the Boston City Hall. So that's just an awesome opportunity for our students. And, kudos and credit to the art teachers, the department, and all of the students for putting themselves out there and always representing Georgetown so well. That's a great thing. But I just wanted you to be aware of it. I need to write about that. I've got like 7 things I gotta write in my blog about, and that's one of them. Because I do find that that's important to get the word out to the public, because it's, education isn't just about the academics, it's really about being well-rounded and having a broad, learning happens through a lot of mediums and modems, and I think our art program is really one to be very, very proud of. So, congratulations to everybody for that and earning those awards. I think maybe if you're gonna wait the 5 minutes, do you wanna have Mary Beth and Heather come up for just a couple of seconds, and then they can do their update? So, would you mind, Jim, sit right there, but Mary, you guys wanna come on up? Because we don't want them to wait too long. They've been waiting patiently. All right, we'll just be flexible here for a few minutes while we're waiting for our guests.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
So graceful.
So, welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
Oh, no, here they come, watch. Start. Go ahead.
All right, so, yeah.
Yeah, I'll start.
It's only one.
I knew that would happen, they'd come up.
Well, we
Hi,
won't
Phil.
take too much time. We've had 3, I believe, very productive meetings so far. They've been well attended, and it's just been full of enthusiastic conversation and dialogue about various health and wellness issues in our community. But we have 2 things we want to report on. The first thing that I'll be touching on is our Health and Wellness Fair, which is just around the corner. It's April 5th. It's a free event for the public, so everybody who's watching at home, mark your calendars. We'd like to see you all there.
Bring your families.
Yep, bring your family, your kids, friends, everybody.
And it's on the same day as the Kiwanis breakfast, so you can
Yes.
kind of make it
Oh, yeah.
a day.
So we're hoping that will increase foot traffic at the fair, because we have a long list of participants.
Almost
people
20,
who-
right, almost 20
Mhm.
vendors now.
Oh, that's
who,
great.
Yeah.
will be representing various health and wellness fields, from PT to
Gotta add that to my
Um,
blog, health fair.
holistic wellness, nutrition. We'll be doing a table together.
Even
And
dermatologists.
dermatology, there'll be a skin cancer screening, I believe, or
Yes.
skincare screening.
Yeah. And you know
Um,
how hard it is to make a dermatologist appointment, so this is free. Free
Yes.
screening.
So we're looking forward to it. So it'll be in the Pembroke gym, and yeah. you have any questions?
Very exciting.
Yeah.
Great.
Very
So that should be
exciting.
great. And the next thing, we're seeking your approval of the survey, the attitudes and behavior survey, which I believe Pam has passed out to you at a prior meeting, correct?
Well, we have it in the
Have it in the
packet.
We have it in the packet,
Okay, yeah.
yes.
And we'd like it to be administered to grades 7, 9, and 11. It takes about 45 minutes. It's 160 questions. And it will give us a wealth of knowledge. Assets, as you might have heard already, are the strengths that a student has already. Things like a lot of values and relationships, and it measures what we have in our community and what our students already come to the table with. And so it builds on that, and it shows where we're weaker and what kind of programs we can institute to get that, to get those up. And it kind of, coordinates with what Chris Herron brought.
Absolutely.
It seems like a no-brainer to me, just to have something like this to,
Yeah, and it's a district initiative, that wellness is a district initiative, so it can also be utilized as part of this data could be used as part of our action planning if there's, for that particular strategic goal going forward. So it's actually very timely, the data, because it'll
really
be
is,
useful
yeah.
for next year's goals. And obviously, Peter's school improvement plan
Right.
and a few other.
And this is part of our the district's
It is, yeah.
strategic plan.
Yeah.
So when will they be administered?
in
Like,
the spring, either the end of this month or, actually April or probably early April.
Okay, so like what courses would the kids be, like, would it be like
Use
all
them.
7th graders at a certain time, or would it be like during enrichment?
It's a paper and pencil
Yeah,
test.
it takes 45 minutes, and I'm not sure what class yet, but maybe health, or I don't know,
Okay.
something like that,
In a similar way that the Communities That Care, the other survey was done 4
Yeah.
years ago.
Right.
Because that was successful, that
Right.
went well, the actual administration of it,
Yeah,
yes.
it's not a difficult,
No, we would work
test
with
for us.
guidance and the principal on that,
Yeah,
in terms of what's.
and then the results would come back.
Yes, and the results are like 100, it's a very thick booklet that comes back to you with ideas for improving and what your percentages are as far as your, the strengths of your students.
And they also
Yeah.
use this survey in Newburyport, and they've done this for many years, so they know how to,
No, the
interpret the
survey,
results and
yeah,
put
the survey was very
place.
interesting, and the things that, I mean, it really hits everything
It
that we
does.
wanna know about these kids,
Yeah.
and hopefully it will be something that the kids will take seriously,
Right.
and I know that Pam had said that there's a way for them to know whether it's being
They
accurate.
scratch them, they
Yeah.
don't use them if they don't look like they've been legitimately done.
which is
But it-
usually about 5 to 8% of the surveys.
Get scratched.
Yes.
Okay.
Excellent.
Yeah, should be good. It's about $975.
But that's
which
less
ends up being
Which is much
about,
less than any other option.
yeah, it is.
And it's a great value. It gives us
Yeah.
all the information. It gives more information than the
Than
other
others have,
options.
yeah.
Like the four
And
core
it hits
measures
those,
of the
it
drug-free
hits those
community.
four
plans.
major
Grants, right?
Yes.
components that we need
Right.
to.
One of the
Yes.
benefits of it.
Yeah, and it costs, it's like about $3 a person, which is less than a gallon of gas, which, get more mileage maybe.
Oh, there you go. Look at it.
So, could we take a vote on it? or-
Yeah.
Put this down here?
So you didn't wanna go over anything else, just the health
Would
fair,
you have any-
April?
Yeah, do you have any
April
questions
5th.
about this survey at all?
These ladies are doing an awesome job, I
Yeah,
gotta
no,
tell
I
you.
appreciate it. I wish I could come to the meetings, but for me, after school does not
That's
work.
okay, no.
Have
it's
you
all right,
been
yeah.
getting the minutes as we've been sending them out?
I didn't, but then when I sent you the email.
Okay,
Yeah,
we got
I
them.
got them,
Okay.
yeah, so I appreciate at least,
On our list,
And we
yeah.
should
Yeah.
probably we
Include
should just
them in-
include them in the packet.
yeah, I agree. Yeah, we
Oh,
should.
That's a good idea.
But I'm
Well,
glad that
and
you
they'll
have,
be posted on the website too, the minutes, right?
Yes, I don't think they are yet, but we will.
It's just a process
get
of
on
how
that.
to do that. I know. It's not as easy as it sounds, but
I'll talk to Barry.
eventually.
We're gonna get there.
Yes.
no, but I'm glad that you have the community involvement. It sounds like
No,
you have
people have been
core
great.
people that are taking the time to go. So
Yeah,
that's,
yeah.
you know, that's the first thing that you need to do. So that's great.
Right.
I'm glad.
And
Thank you for taking it on.
Yes,
Responding to
absolutely.
community concerns.
Yeah.
So we can vote on it.
Okay, so the chair will entertain a motion to approve the process for administering the attitudes and behavior survey this spring as presented.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
very
much.
much.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you
us.
very much
for coming.
Thanks for coming. Okay, now we're good.
Okay, Mr. Luker, thank you for being patient. Thank you for coming out again.
Very interesting to hear.
Welcome, Board of Selectmen.
Yep, so the Board of Selectmen are
Yeah,
here
change.
as well, which is great. Thank you for fitting us in. I
Yeah,
know
we
this
wanna
is an
give them
important topic
copies
for
of-
you as
Sure.
well.
So just so you know, we're here as individuals listening, so we're not actually.
As a board?
Just our meeting.
Okay.
So there are three documents that he's gonna talk about. Feel free to take one of each.
There you go, yeah. One of each.
I think they have it.
Oh, you think they have them? Oh, did you give them to him, Mike? Oh, okay, then they probably have them.
Report,
Yeah.
The report,
results,
and,
and the map.
yep, okay, they're all good. Okay, then maybe if anybody else in the public wants them.
You can leave them there, that's fine. Thank you.
None of them look like they have their packets, so do you guys want it?
They left
want-
them down in-
Okay.
Pass those out.
Okay.
You can start.
Thank you.
Okay, so just a little bit of history. So after the last meeting, I met with Gale Associates and their project engineer Lindsay, and she obtained the samples that they had taken with their boring program, and she determined which areas on the field, which you'd see on the map there, where they were going to have some excavation of materials for foundations, primarily for the bleachers and the lights and so forth. So we took those areas that were going to be excavated, and we analyzed those samples for the three metals that we had talked about, the arsenic, lead, and cadmium. In the interim, while we were waiting for the results, discussed with Carol about talking to DEP about what we were doing, and reached out to Steve Robinson at DEP, told him that we were doing this testing. We weren't sure what the results were going to show, but if the results did come back with arsenic in there, most likely would probably be similar to the Pembroke school, and it would be a naturally occurring phenomena. And his opinion was that DEP would support that, and that the exemption would apply as far as notification, so that this would not have to be notified to DEP, was his opinion. So we got the results back, and you can see on the table, of the 9 samples that we ran, 2 of them came back with arsenic levels over the 20 parts per million standard. And when we talked about the 20 parts per million standard is not a risk standard, it's a background standard for the state. The other metals didn't show up above any standards. Typically with the pesticides, the lead, arsenic pesticides that are used, you see the combination of lead and arsenic together. So we are obviously not seeing that in this scenario. So the 2 samples that did come back with it are, one is in the retaining wall area, and the other is in a lighting area. The one sample of the 85 is above the imminent hazard level that DEP has set for arsenic. Normally, under the DEP regs, that would be a 2-hour notification to DEP.
So is that the retaining wall or the light?
No, it's
The
by
light,
the-
B3,
yes, the
that's
light
that's a
B3.
light area, yeah. So, but, you know, I guess there's a lot of things to think about with getting these results, but I'm sure that one of the things, first you'd like to know how this is going to impact your project. So the borings that Gale did they're really for structures. So one of the driving forces in this work will be if there's excess soil that they have to get rid of that contains the arsenic, it has to be handled specially and disposed of off-site. Arsenic impacted soil, similar to the concentrations at Pembroke School, can go to a variety of facilities in Maine, and those costs run anywhere from $32 to $35 a ton at the gate. When you add transportation and stuff on top of that, it goes up to, $50 to $60 a ton T&D. If the levels are low enough, it can go to a landfill. Landfills in Massachusetts are a lot less money. They're around $15 to $20 a ton. I don't know of any landfills immediately up in this area that are taking soil, but there are ones in Fall River, Taunton, Bourne, Cranston, but the trucking sometimes offsets the discount that you're getting. So the big question, and I haven't discussed this with Gail yet, or talked to him about how their design, this would impact their design, but usually with these synthetic fields, what they do is they strip off underneath the carpet. So I would imagine that the center of the field, where we don't have a lot of data, is where they're going to strip off that soil. That's going to generate quite a bit of soil. So we don't know whether that soil is impacted or not. If you look at B1 and B2, they were below the 20 standard. They're a little bit higher than what we normally see, but they're below. So there's quite a bit of gaps in terms of that stripping. So, you know, to manage this project, you know, what I would recommend is you would sit down with Gail, you would look at what they're going to do, you would figure out how to minimize as much as possible the off-site soil, and then you would come up with a second tier of testing to go out there and try to document what may or may not be contaminated, so you can maybe segregate a lot of it. The topsoil that's out there, you would think wouldn't be impacted, but we don't really know. You know, one of the things I would also recommend is we do a full history of the school and look at the construction and try to figure out exactly how these fields were constructed. But by going through that motion, you can probably find ways to reduce the amount of soil you have to take off, and then you could also come up with a plan to really carefully delineate what may or may not be impacted, and be able to segregate some of the soil, which would be a money saver for you.
So I did talk to Pat Saeta about it, and he said that if there was testing done in the middle of the field where we think there's fill because of the crowning of the, he said that if it was not containing arsenic, that it could be used at the Pembroke School as long as it was not with arsenic. So we just don't know how much that might be. They cannot take any contaminated soil. They're completely full of that at the school. But they could take good material. So that's something that's because that has to be skimmed off anyway, right?
It
The carpet
does.
sits on the top of it.
Yes.
But usually when the bid would go out, that might be something the contractor would figure as an
advantage for them.
Be of advantage for them anyway, but it depends, you know, how the specs.
What is the depth for capping that's required for an artificial field on top of this stuff?
I'm not sure. I think it's more like 18 inches.
18 inches, that's the
yeah.
plan, it's 18 inches.
So if what you take out is good stuff, which I think that's a reasonable assumption, and that goes up to Pembroke, the depth then comes down to, if they can get that down, scrape that down to 18 inches, you could, in theory, bury here and cap this with the turf field?
Well, yeah, they're gonna put in their drainage and everything underneath the field,
Yeah.
all their stuff. So that 18 inches, that starts up here, and then the field's just on top of it. So they take out 18 inches, and then they put in the drainage material and stuff underneath the field.
So there's not 18 inches room to fill with this stuff?
No, you'd have to dig
deeper.
dig deeper, which,
Okay.
that's a possibility too. You could cap it there, and, but, you know, you would have to, you don't wanna be taking out more, you'd have to find some clean stuff, you know.
Yeah.
You could use the field as sort of a containment cell, put dirty stuff underneath it, at deeper depth.
Right.
You know.
Do you,
That's
based on your
interesting.
experience, when you look at the landforms that are out there, it's interesting where those showed up at the toe of those cuts. Does anything come up for you as to what?
Well, yeah, that's where I would expect that would be where the native material would be more towards the surface.
Yeah.
So that's where I expected it to be over there, but it's a little bit, B3 is a little bit further away. I haven't really looked at that, how that, if it's pretty close to a slope too. Does the slope go over that far? Yeah, so I mean, that makes sense that slope is probably the natural material that's gotten down into that area. You know, it's a pretty steep slope, so that's what it would expect to happen out there. So that's what I would expect it to be.
So does the 85 count, does that take what you know for information now and turn it into an immediate hazard issue for construction?
Well, it's
Construction?
an imminent hazard under the DEP regs, which we're not governed by right now. You know, that's a concentration that the DEP has said that they want some kind of further investigation and restriction when you find it. That's why they require you to report it immediately. And we've talked a little bit about that this area really isn't being used right now. You know, until we decide exactly what we're going to do, it would be prudent to restrict travel in that area, and then you could figure out how you're going to approach that and deal with that area.
I'm not surprised by any of the results, except for that one. And it is what it is. I will say that I think the testing was something that we had to do. I think it was a good call. I think you're already, in a strange way, starting to see some of the benefits of that with DEP and that kind of dialogue with them, so that we don't have to get involved and caught like we did with the Pembroke project.
Yeah, and you can get
substantial savings there.
That's right, and you can put into the bid specs, you can,
Yeah.
put in that, and you get competitive bids on the disposal. And you get, and, it's manageable, but what we need to know is the volume, so that we know whether, is the number gonna be another $50,000 or another $200,000? We need to know how much is out there,
So would you be recommending that we do that the school committee approve additional testing?
Yeah, that's why.
At this point, because I think we're all kind of wondering about the timeline on this.
Yeah, I
right?
know you have
'Cause,
short
if there's a cost or a need to mitigate this, we would really need to know that, because it may be the case that, as David Surface said at the meeting, we had the joint meeting, perhaps there's a need to get, in order for the turf project to move forward, we would need to figure out how we were gonna get the money, whatever that amount is, to fix the problem so that the other part of the project can go through. So I'm just trying to understand, because I don't know what those timelines look like. I'm just trying to understand if we were to move forward with testing, let's say the committee said, okay, you're recommending, tests be done in the center where the field is. And we know how that works, right? We take the soil, it takes basically a week, and we get the results back, depending on what the results are. Would you then do a plan that would, how would we get to the point where we would know
The cost of.
the cost? First of all, what we would do and what the cost would be?
Well, what we would do is, I would go and I'd work with Gail, I'd go, make sure we understand exactly where their soil volumes are coming from, and we want to make sure that we put our borings where those anticipated volumes are coming out, and, it looks like they probably covered most of it already, but except for the field, then we get that component done, then we go out there, we're going to be really careful with the sampling, that, separating the topsoil beneath the other materials. So, when we take a boring, we go down, 3 or 4 feet or whatever, we can segregate that off, and then we can run tests sequentially, run the first test, run the second test, and see how deep it is and where it is. But we just come up with a plan to try to segregate as much as that soil as possible. Once we had those numbers and those concentrations, then you can put that into the bid spec, and you can dictate how the soil is going to be managed, and you put that health and safety plan, soil management plan, dust control, you can put that all into the bid spec. So that's how you do it.
So would you, I'm just trying to understand that process. So do you have a number that you're working with there, or you're waiting to see what the bid specs tell you in terms of how much it's gonna cost?
Well, I think the testing will give us the volume, the anticipated volume of impacted soil. And then the other thing to work with the Gail is there another way to possibly reduce that volume if it comes back all contaminated? So that's what we try to do. Just try to come up with ways to reduce the volume of excavation.
And I'm assuming that the the pricing you get back from contractors is one price, but the price that Carol's talking about is prior to that, so we can do for planning purposes.
Right, 'cause-
So can you and Gail provide a budget number?
Oh,
that
yeah,
is-
we could provide a range right now. I could go to them, we say, what is your soil equation, how much you plan to take out? We can say, if all this is impacted and has to be removed, it's gonna be X. If it's 30%, it's this. We could do something on that nature. Give you some budget items on that.
So Mike, I don't know what to do about that. So is that something we would want to, if that could be determined, is that something we would want to put on the warrant this spring, or this next session?
Well, you'd have to have.
We have to have a number, right?
Yeah. If you have any hopes of doing this project, anytime soon.
Right, in the timeline that we're hoping to get the project done, you would have to know,
What's the
what's the timeframe that you would have to
date?
know?
Well,
Yesterday, I know, but
it would go on the special town meeting warrant,
Mhm.
which we have the same day as the annual town meeting.
right, the meeting before the big meeting.
And as long as, so there would be a warrant article to raise and appropriate X amount of dollars, and in this case, it would probably have to come from free cash.
Okay.
I don't know.
And it would be a not-to-exceed number, would it be, or?
No, it would be an exact number.
An exact number, okay.
That's
If you
gonna
didn't
be
spend it all, then it just goes
Right.
back to free
Yeah,
cash.
yeah.
So,
But why does April 14th hold in my mind, though? Isn't that the
Well,
date that we were talking about
we
yesterday?
have to post the warrant by the 17th of April.
Okay.
That's, technically, annual town meeting is, you have to post it 7 days ahead of the meeting. And special meeting is 14 days before.
Okay.
But there's also, as long as we had something on there, you could make a motion from the floor, and that would give you an extra, 2-3 weeks, or almost 4 weeks.
Yeah.
3 weeks. But, that's not a good way to do it.
Jim, how quickly can you come back to the district with a range, a ballpark of, after you get the test results back?
Next meeting, April 10?
I would say we'd want a week.
Is there any way that you can make some assumptions today? I don't mean today literally, but not wait for the test results to come back. Make certain assumptions and come up with some budget figures based on those assumptions, just so that the order of magnitude is something that people can start to understand versus all of a sudden at the last minute you get this number?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was alluding to. We could work with Gail, figure out the
A
soil
range.
budget, and we could come up with a range based on what we anticipate is gonna come out of there. We could, we could make some assumptions about how thick the topsoil is, what's underneath it and all that type of stuff, and come up with a order of magnitude budget, what it could cost.
So there are 3 numbers there then that would be generated. There's one that would be this process, there's one that would be when you get the test results back, a more exact process, a more exact estimate, and then there's the ultimate one from the contractor.
Right.
And all
that-
3 don't necessarily match.
Right, I think that they're gonna want that data when they put the specs out to bid, because they wanna be able to, the contractor can really know what he's getting into and how to cost it out. So that would be how I'd approach it. And, I don't know is Gale tied into that grade there?
I don't know, we'd have to ask them.
I mean, could we just strip the topsoil out and raise the grade?
I think those are parts
I
of the
think
questions that
anything's on the table, yeah.
you're gonna have to ask
'Cause
and sit down with Gail.
If this material's contaminated underneath it, we don't wanna touch it, but if all they need to do is get rid of the topsoil so they have drainage, that would be another way to approach it.
I think you'd have to talk to Gail.
But they'd have to, that would, the field would be,
Higher,
foot higher, foot and a half higher,
yeah.
you know. But that, you know, in terms of the volume of soil, you know, that, this is gonna be a football field,
Multi-purpose.
multi-purpose, so it's probably got.
And there's a baseball diamond that's turfed. as
So
well.
it's got the dimensions of a football field or bigger probably, so, you know, that taking out a foot of soil over a whole football field generates, you know, several thousand yards of material.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Mr. Surface, do you have a question?
Yeah, so the plan of action would be to test, looking at this diagram more in the middle, right, where the field is gonna go?
How many borings would you recommend, Jim?
We'd probably do quite a few out there, you know, we'd utilize a driller for probably at least a whole day, maybe two, and you can go really fast. We have the data, and we don't have to run all the data, but we do it on like a grid, and then we can, you know, run it as we need to. Get the samples back, and then we can run additional ones if we need to.
And the reason you'd have so many is to know where to isolate?
No way to isolate, you know, if they all come back negative, then we're done all to begin with, but if we have like one spot that has some, then we can tighten it up and
So
figure out.
it's not like the last one where we just said there's 9 samples. It sounds like you're recommending a certain process.
Yeah, put it on a grid and do it that way, you know, so that we can really just figure out where all that material is.
Now, how quickly could that be done?
We get a driller out there, get the results back in 5 days.
But I mean, could the driller be out Monday
He
or
could,
tomorrow? I know, I was gonna say
Or
tomorrow.
he's supposed to get a dig safe number, that
Yeah,
takes 72
that takes-
hours.
yeah.
But that,
Early
but-
next week.
Yeah, but he could be out there in 72 hours.
David, you're.
So, if the middle of the field has no contamination, would only have to use contamination protocols in the B5, B3 area? The
Yeah.
rest of it could be going as normal construction goes, and then these would have containment, you know, other containment protocols?
Yes.
Yeah,
That's
and
how
then,
it would work, so that would keep the cost significantly down.
yeah, and then the B3, these lights, you know, in the geotechnical report, they talked about putting those on piers.
That's right, they're gonna be on piers.
So if that's, you can look at that cost difference, is it cheaper just to put them on piers, put some covering over it and just leave it rather than dig it up?
Right. So the next question would be, from this, there's no contamination in B1 and B2, and it seems to be isolated in B3, B5. You couldn't, in your professional opinion, rationalize that there's no additional testing that needs to be done because where the field is going is a lot closer to B1 and 2 than it is B3 and B5.
Yeah, I mean.
You really need to do the testing in the middle of this area?
Yeah, because I really have no idea what this material is or, you know, how it was placed or anything else, you know. So it would be,
So if the middle of the field, we do these tests, these borings, and everything comes back good, we're not really looking to spend a lot of money for remediation because it's only B3 and B5. It shouldn't be that bad of a number, to be honest with you, right?
Well, that's why we have Jim
Right,
to
right, well, that's the
give us a plan. We don't have a plan yet, but,
But that's what we're hoping for.
yeah, that's the best
that
case
would be the
scenario.
good thing. And the, you know, what B5 and B4 are, that's going to be the retaining wall, so that's going to restrict access and cover
Right.
that area.
That's right.
So then you know, you have this 185 over by B3. You know, if you excavate that, it goes away, or you could cover it over with additional topsoil or whatever and get rid of it that way if you put the piers in.
So that's what we need. We need a plan, you know, so we can
We
all.
need results first, don't we?
We need results, but then we need a plan on, you know, so what is the minimum we have to do?
I'm assuming there's gonna be an additional cost too with Gale to get involved in this exercise, because this is, I'm sure, not part of their scope, but we're gonna wanna check that.
Yeah, we'll check that out.
So, even before the testing happens,
Mhm.
could you come up with some numbers on assumptions, like Rob said? Could you just say, all right, we're gonna assume that the middle of the field is contaminated, and that number, to remediate that and do the construction, that number comes up to X. And then that's the worst case scenario. Then take the best case scenario and say, okay, only B3, B5 is contaminated, we're gonna do some above ground remediation, we're not even gonna disturb the area there, like he suggests, and come up with that number. Because then, that could come back to where Mike is.
They need a number. That's-
So, before we even get the results, so we know a worst case, best case scenario, in terms of dollars and test results. Because I think that would be a good exercise to have, so that if it's, you just pick a number, don't hold me to it. If it's $200,000, if it's all contaminated, or it's, only 50,000 if it's not contaminated, then we know where we kinda got an idea, and to see, I have no idea where the money's coming to. This free cash only goes so far. So,
I know.
before you run out. That's just my thought.
So I have a couple questions. Why didn't we do the testing in the middle of the field, do a few of those borings initially? And the only reason I'm asking is now this set us back a couple of weeks. And I'm just kind of curious
I know
from
the
a
answer.
professional standpoint. I would have expected that
Sure.
that was.
Carol has that
I
answer.
know the answer too.
Well, the issue, I think, is we were trying to use soil that had been collected from previous borings. That was collected in previous borings in certain locations because there were certain questions they were trying to ask. So, that's why we used the soil we had available. So we didn't wanna do more digging and testing if we didn't have to. We weren't sure what the results were gonna be. We were hoping they were all gonna be below 20, but lo and behold, they're not. But they are restricted to they appear to be restricted to certain areas. So what we were talking about is, okay, so now, just to do what Jim said, we have to figure out, it's generally not that expensive to test. So that's
That's why I
that's
asked the question, because it's not the money, it's the time, and.
Yeah, we didn't-
so
we
that's
didn't
fine.
think of it that
didn't-
way,
It didn't
so-
get done.
yeah, we didn't think of
You had
it.
your assumptions.
Yeah.
I have a question just regarding, so we do the boring, and worst case scenario, we actually identify that all this needs to be scraped up and moved. We don't come up with the money. What's our obligation?
Well, you have to look at whether you have a risk for people using the fields with the stuff that's at the surface
Right.
today. You'd have to look at that. I would say we could run a risk assessment based on the numbers that we got and see whether there's a risk to use the field with the concentrations that we find there.
I'm just thinking of.
That parallels the project that we did at Pembroke,
Yeah,
yeah.
look at critical path per se, and one, getting the project done, but second is, from our standpoint, from a budget standpoint, if for some reason this comes up to be at a budget point that the town does not have the funds today to fund this, for the athletic project, put that aside for a second, we find out we've got some issues there, what's the EPA, or DEP rather, going to require us to do on that? So
Yeah.
I'm kind of thinking Plan B as well, just in case.
And the DEP is gonna stay out of it because they're gonna say it's not under the regulations.
Right.
So it's gonna be up to the school to decide what they wanna do.
But I think they would advise that you have to at least deal with the part that's over 40. Because that
Right,
would
but-
normally
And then
indicate
you do a
some
risk
action being
assessment
taken,
on the
yeah,
rest of it when it
yeah.
comes out. Okay.
And that's because of getting the test that we're able to, DEP's not in here.
Yeah.
Which is,
And
which
if
is
we had to
huge.
cap it without the project, we might as well continue to go with the project.
Right,
We're gonna
that's-
spend that money anyway. So
Right,
why
yeah.
stop the project if it has to be capped anyway?
But so the next thing that really I need to sit down with the Gale engineers and just talk about some of these things and figure out what options are out there, and we could put together the order of magnitude cost estimate like you're talking about. And maybe one of the options is that they could raise the grade. I don't know.
So the school committee doesn't meet again until April 10th. So why I'm asking this question is does it make sense and they need to appropriate, they have to agree to have you do additional test borings. So would you recommend that they consider that tonight so that it's
Get it going.
get it going, to Phil's point, because if we wait for the plan and then, it takes a little bit of time to get that, and then we have to do the testing, it makes it harder for us to get that number.
Yeah, I think it would be, if you want to try to get this all on your timeline for this season, that you probably need to start as soon as possible.
Right. So that's, I guess, why I asked the question, like, how many borings because I understood the mathematical formula the last time, X amount of dollars, for each boring. The math was pretty easy to figure out, so that's what I'm trying to get at, what amount of money, how
Right, when
many
you say
borings,
you're
what
gonna have
amount
to
of
do
money. Yeah.
extensive,
Yeah,
borings,
is
like
it, is
what
it
is the cost
40
gonna be?
borings at $60 a boring? I mean, you know, that's,
The boring rig itself is around $1,200 a day plus materials, and then you figure 2 days, it's $2,400. So you're probably in the, I would say, in the $10,000 to $15,000 range to do all that testing out there.
and you're absolutely certain that level of testing is what needs to, we can't do, you know, we can't do, you know, eight borings in that location and be fairly certain that we.
Well, the cost of having the drill rig out there for 2 days, that's $2,400, and you take all those samples on the grid pattern that we lay out, then you can hold those samples and just run them as, when they come back, you know, you have like a bigger grid, then you go to like a smaller grid, so you know, but you have the data, so then you don't have to worry about going back and drilling again, because that's where you have the cost of the drill rig plus the person out there doing the work is, you know, a couple $1,000s a day, so you don't want to have to redo
The
that.
mobilization cost.
Yeah. So,
It's a little more than I thought you were gonna say.
What would,
Yeah.
what would,
A little sticker shock.
how do you respond to one day and getting as many borings as you can get in a day?
you know, with the depth of the borings and stuff, if you just went to shallow, you know, you can do a lot of borings, 5 feet in a day, you know, you could get quite a few out there, you know.
Does 5 feet answer the question?
Well,
Because I
that's
thought
what-
you were going down 18.
That's why I need to talk to Gail to make sure I put the borings to the right depth, and do we need to put some borings down deeper if we're talking
See.
about doing anything different? You know, that's, you know,
So to answer that question, you need to talk to Gail first.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to give you, if you wanted to authorize something tonight, I was just trying to give you
I see.
ballpark number, and then we would come back and give you an actual number, what it would be after talking to Gail.
And that's, I mean, where would that money come
That's
from?
why I was just saying to
The
Joe.
10 to 15.
From the magic money tree,
$1,000.
apparently, I don't know the
I
answer.
know, you know, that's putting you on the spot, Joan, but is there a space that you can think of in the budget that has that kind of money?
Would we have it in choice? No, we've committed all the.
Choice is,
I thought
Choice
it was
came in a little
healthy
higher.
enough, but
It might
No,
be,
it
I mean,
wasn't
not
healthy,
healthy,
but we got
but-
more money this year.
yeah, so it might be a possibility.
So what's to be gained by trying to do this right now versus tomorrow? Is there a way for you guys to?
Well, no,
Well, because
the
we have
issue
to
is,
approve
the
it.
issue is for you to prove it.
Couldn't
The
they
next
approve
meeting.
I mean, we-
pending funding
No, we could
or
have a
something?
special meeting, I think.
Oh.
Sorry.
Yeah, but
Yeah, no,
I just made an
Well,
assumption.
let's just think for a minute about our alternatives here, because one thing could be that you could.
Hold on a
oh,
minute.
Sorry, you
Yeah,
got questions?
Mr. Smith has, I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying, you wanna talk about this?
I think the best way to proceed with this is just through a change order with Gail's contract.
Part of the
It's
money is
incidental
appropriate.
and related to the
Those are
project.
Mike's favorite words.
That's why we put it in there all the time.
Yeah, it's warrant article.
Sounds good.
Warrant article.
You know, you're gonna run out of money
Well,
at the
Yeah,
end.
well, we are.
We don't have grass on the outside of the field or bleachers.
But I don't
You
know.
don't have
if-
that
I've got
anyways.
bleachers anyway, so.
Unless you
We
take
could
it out of
fundraise
the
more for that
Don't
later.
bring that up.
budget. I don't
Well,
know
that's
where
what,
else
that's
you
what we
get
thought
it.
we were trying to figure out.
Yeah.
We're like, where's that coming from? That's why we were
Project cost, really.
panicking
It is,
a
it's
little.
project cost.
Yeah.
It's part of-
Appropriated
it's
as part of
your
the-
site
All right, well, we can talk to Gail about that.
It wasn't for a
Yeah, I
site,
mean,
but
that
it's
would
part of the
be-
site.
It is part of the site work.
And that might be kind of a seamless way to do it, because, you know, I could just go to Gail, we could work it out, and then we could come back, and I could give them a number that they would give to you. I have a standing, open contract with Gail, I work with them all the time, so I could just, they
Well,
could just
Are
come
you
back to
comfortable
you.
with that? We'll go do that and check out the change order part.
Does
Well-
John
Well,
Pingree know? Have you been in touch
I
with?
have not been in touch with
No.
John, but because I felt like it was important to do it here
Sure.
first, before we, sort of started telling people about it, so. Will that
Yeah.
work?
I guess I'm okay with it as a concept
Yeah.
after I hear what the number is.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Well, I think
don't
he's
there would
talking
be
about
any-
getting the number.
There
No,
wouldn't
I-
be any risk until you got the number, you would just make a decision, so that just, we'll go and I'll work with Gail, try to figure out what would work, and give them a number, and they'll give it to you. And then we'll just,
Okay, and then we
Take it
can
from
have a
there.
meeting if we have to, or we'll go.
but I guess we try to do it quickly so
As
that we
quickly
could,
as
Well, as
possible.
quickly as possible.
Yes,
You're
I
looking at a
mean-
72-hour you know, to get the appropriate permits, and then, I mean, we're not really looking until the week after next.
And
We're looking to
And-
start this project next month.
Yeah,
I'll hold my
as a
question.
suggestion, you could approve an amount not to exceed, and then you don't, the decision's made.
And if you have to come back, then.
Yeah, and then if you, right.
Right.
Did you have something
I
else?
was just saying in terms of the logistics of the warrant article,
Mhm.
that even depending on how long it takes to get the exact number, there can still be a warrant article potentially out there with a number associated with it, and it can be amended on the floor
Mhm.
based on what you
Yeah,
know.
I've seen that done.
Up to the last minute. So if it's not correct, that's okay, because you're amending, you're doing it in good faith, and you come to the floor and say, okay, we know exactly what it is now, I'd like to amend it for this number. So there is
There are
time,
options
there
out
is
there,
more
right.
time versus the printed warrant versus when and obviously, we want to be as accurate as possible whenever we're putting stuff on the warrant. And this would have to get approved by selectmen to go on the warrant, but it can, the value can be amended on the floor based on what you know at the time.
So just to clarify for myself, so what we would be approving tonight is to pay for your time to get together with Gail to determine the borings that are needed and how many are needed? That's what we are approving?
And doing the boring.
Doing the borings, I
Doing
think
the
up
borings
to
and the
the
testing.
high
I
cost.
thought you wanted to wait on that till you got an
Well,
actual number.
that's why I'm asking for
Yeah.
But you
clarification.
wouldn't have time to come back
Good.
as a committee.
Is if you could approve that in another week or something?
You could have a special meeting on that, if as long as we can't get a quorum.
I would make myself available to do that.
Yeah, you don't feel comfortable with the not to exceed amount?
Wants to see a number.
Only
I think
because,
you
only because I'm
got-
just
you gotta
not
get a number from
familiar
Gail,
with the
they gotta
industry
say
like
what
he
they're
is.
gonna do.
I
right?
think that's probably the way, that's
open
probably
to
the best
that.
way to go. Then we have more information. It won't hold anything up, right, because the process still moves.
As long as
Just
we're not
at the point at which you need an ability to move forward with it, that's when the school committee could get together.
Yeah, that works as long as we can just keep it moving. I can't really speak for how quickly Gail will, react, but they've been calling me for the results for.
They have,
Yeah,
I
3 or 4 times a
I
day.
emailed Lindsay on that today.
So I think they're eager to do stuff, and we've talked about it a little bit already, so, not with the results, but conceptually at the beginning.
How many days do you need to post a meeting?
48 hours.
So in terms of financing this for a second, and Mike, this might be a question for you. So we've been given authorization as a town for a specific number on a bond, right?
That's right.
So we wouldn't necessarily have to find this in, one option other than free cash could be to increase the authorization of going to, out for a bond, right?
No, because it's a CPC, there's CPC money,
Oh, that's right.
and it would have to go through the CPC process. I think we're gonna have to appropriate additional funds outside of CPC for this. So we need to know the incremental cost.
Yep.
And that's what will raise above and beyond the bonding authority.
Okay.
I tried, guys.
Yeah, no, we appreciate that, but I think what we can do I don't know what your next week looks like, keep in mind that we might have to have a special meeting.
Sure, yeah,
So.
yes. I'm flexible, I'm open to that.
Absolutely.
Okay. I appreciate your time.
It's my pleasure.
So you'll be able to contact Gail tomorrow?
Yep, I will, yes. I'll
All
get
right.
up there and we'll sit down and try to figure out the best way to go and come up with a plan and a proposal with some numbers.
All right. Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay.
Thank you guys for coming up.
Thank you.
We're going back to our meeting.
Okay.
Enjoy.
Thanks, guys.
Go have fun.
Thank
Thanks a
you.
lot, Phil.
Thank you for coming. Was Mike still here? Yeah.
That Steve has signed.
I'm gonna run.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay, we'll get
All the green
things. All the green ones?
Thank you for coming.
We'll take care of it.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Just got out of not approving plans right now,
Sounds like there's a chance.
You knew that you were up next, Mike?
which was
Trying to get
generous
the
of
bit to
him
go home, he has to
Yeah.
go to bed.
doing that.
You know, I just want to explain to those of you who are waiting patiently that when we built the agenda, we didn't know the results of the soil. And because there's a sense of urgency about that, and Mr. Luker could come out from the Cape, that's why it got added. So I think we all apologize. This is not, usually you wouldn't be here this long, here, and appreciate your patience. But that's what happened. We had to deal with those soil issues. And this was the meeting that we had available. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to have it till April 10th. And that's getting way too late. So, thank you for your patience.
Hi, Mike.
Hey, how are you guys?
Hi, Mike.
How are you?
I gave you guys all a copy of this list
Yeah.
in the packet,
Yes.
and I think it's pretty self-explanatory, and as we get closer to summer, I'll probably add things as I get requests from principals and teachers and that type of stuff, but,
Yeah, it's a long list.
It looks substantial. Yes, they're busy departments.
yeah, we have a lot of big projects going on through, different funding sources like the CIP or the CPC, but, it's gonna be busy and hopefully, get everything done and improve the schools by that much.
So when it says replace the outside steps to the auxiliary lot. Is
Yeah,
that gonna
that's
be
like
done
from
like
the
right after
student
school
gets out.
ends?
Yeah.
And how long is that project gonna take?
It'll probably take about 30 days, because
Will
we're
it
gonna
take
have it
that
all
long?
dug out and
Yeah.
have the proper footings put in
gonna be
and that
done
kind of stuff. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Yeah, it looks like it's, you have a lot of work going on, but in the summertime, you have summer help.
Yeah, we bring in extra
How
people
many
out.
additional bodies do you have in the summer?
We bring on about 6 people.
Oh, it looks good.
So we have to paint the fire hydrants?
Well, we just put that on. Usually the water department does, but
That's nice of you guys.
we want everything to look good.
We shovel them out too,
right?
I mean, one
Yeah,
of
we
the,
do shovel them out.
one of
Yeah.
the things that's gonna be coming up in the near future, I think, Mike's been very involved in it, is, the discussion about a shared maintenance plan. So last Thursday, Mike was at a meeting where this was discussed, but prior to that, the district had, or the town had contracted a gentleman named Mr. Piantadosi, like the bread.
Yeah.
And he, I guess, did the beginnings of a study. He came out and he met with Mike. He walked around. Joan, I think Joan was part of that process. And for whatever reason, that didn't actually result in a written report. But one of the things that Mr. Jim Lacy is interested in, and Mike, and is talking more about what that could look like. Sort of moving away from the concept of outsourcing, which was sort of on the table before, which we've never been fond of. Now there's discussion about, how might that all work out? So you should be expecting some kind of presentation in the near future as to what options might be on the table. And, obviously nothing's committed, but if you wanna go with something that's like a shared maintenance, the town has already previously, in a previous year, like a few years ago now, approved that they would be interested in pursuing that. But the school committee has not taken that step. And for good reasons, we haven't taken that step. You have to really make sure that you have a very clear delineation of, what's gonna be shared, how's it gonna work, who's gonna be in charge, what projects are gonna be, handled. There's a lot to it. So those details are sort of being discussed, and before any kind of proposal comes before you, you'll know in advance and you'll have the opportunity to discuss it. But I just wanna, give you a little foreshadowing that that's gonna be coming.
These aren't any criticisms. You guys are doing great. And I really appreciate everything you're doing. On the painting parking lot crosswalks, when you get into painting on the handicap ones, you just be careful on the craftsmanship of the lettering, because they're non-compliant when they don't follow it to the T.
Yeah.
Not that anyone's ever gonna do anything, but just in case.
Yeah.
That's just an FYI. And there was something else. What is the process you're going through on the outside steps? How are you gonna get those done?
Well, we're gonna have we'll put it out to bid and all that, kind of-
That's a-
Yeah,
okay.
that came from that CIP money.
Okay, that's right, that was
Yeah,
right.
it's gonna be done right.
The broken guardrail, is that the same guardrail that keeps breaking every year or something?
Well,
Oh,
they
like
all,
right in front of the front office? Is that the one right in front of the front office?
several of
Nico?
them break every year because of the
plows.
plows. And
Hard to
Oh, is that what
Right.
happens to them?
If you've ever seen it be plowed, there's a huge piece of equipment up there. It's not a truck, it's an excavator.
Why?
Why
I can't
is it
say.
done that way?
Why is it plowed with a vehicle that is not appropriate for the size of the situation?
That's a very good question. I think that's a Peter Durkee question. It just
Okay.
may be that's what he has available.
Because I'd like to,
Yeah, we
I'd
can
like-
ask
someone
him.
should ask him so that we don't have
Yeah,
to
I
keep
can-
replacing the guardrail every year. And I think there's a light that's out.
Yeah, I'm working on that with the energy project people. They're coming back over April vacation.
What, in
to
the
fix-
parking lot?
Yeah,
There's a bunch of lighting
there's a bunch of
issues.
light, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, there's several sensors that have gone bad on the outside lights. If you've walked around the building, there may be 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah. That was it.
Which is huge. That's a lot of lights.
Yeah.
A lot of lights that are out.
Yeah, we've done a lot of follow-up work on this energy project and
Those-
getting them to follow through, so,
Those lights, I like those lights, some of them.
yeah.
Well, thank you for
Thank you.
providing all this. We appreciate it, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Right. Okay, I totally lost my place
So
on
now
the
we're on
agenda.
Julie.
Okay, now we're on
Julie and-
Julie.
Julie and
Okay.
her crew.
Because I checked them all, but we didn't do it yet.
Yeah, we kinda went out of
I
order,
think I
so.
was wishful thinking.
Generally, a good way to
Are you gonna
keep
come
things.
on up,
Good
Teresa?
idea.
Yeah, Megan, come join her.
But yeah, I feel it. I'm like,
I don't have my little tabs because I ran out of.
Thank you very much for your patience and for coming out.
I need my check mark.
It'll be very helpful to have. Okay.
Just get set up
These to
here.
you to sign right after.
And if you want, Harvey, if you want the committee to approve the payment of that invoice, that's for Jim's time. You can put that under new business.
The projector's already on.
You having technical challenges?
I hope not. Well, I don't think I was hooked to the internet with the new password, so. I'll try and
Okay, okay.
figure it out. But inside your packets, you do have, our most recently updated PowerPoint or, the information that we have received from the state on the new science frameworks. I know I come to you with something new every single time we have a meeting, and
it's very exciting.
it's Science Today, so we, I have some of our science committee members here. This is Megan Sheldon. She is our first grade representative from Pearlie. And Cerise Hawthorne, who's our science department head at the middle high school. And Margaret, our principal at Pearlie, will be talking with me about the STEM initiative that we're looking at to start in the district. And so we'll get to that a little bit later on in this presentation.
Julie, do you craft these yourself?
I do.
Yeah.
You've got a good eye.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Thanks very much. So, I know I can't project it quite yet, but just to give you a sense of some of the work that we're working on, the first slide that I will show you when we get up and running deals with where the science frameworks came from. As you know, the state has recently adopted the new English language arts and math frameworks, which our elementary teachers are dealing with right now, both at the same time, which is tough.
Yep.
And a lot of learning and a lot of processing. And the state has recently adopted a draft version of the new science frameworks as well. So it's kind of unprecedented in that sense to have 3 major frameworks adopted at the same time in the state of Massachusetts. So we're doing our work through the vertical teams of really trying to understand what those new expectations call for. And so the first slide just kind of gives you a sense of where did they get their information from in terms of how do they get to the place where they adopt new frameworks. So they take a look, obviously, at the work that the state has done over the last 10 years with our old frameworks. They've implemented the framework for K-12 science education within this framework standard, the learning progressions in science, and research that they have done or research that they feel is applicable to the core of science and how we should change our structures in terms of classroom instruction. And so there's obviously a lot of research in the educational world, sifting through all of that and trying to determine what is the best fit for where the students in Massachusetts, what the students in Massachusetts should be learning. So the foundation for the new science standards really focuses on college and career readiness, and I can definitely speak to that from the STEM perspective through the course that Margaret and I have been attending over the course of the last year. Because what we're finding across the state, and especially Massachusetts being such a advanced state in terms of education, what we're finding though is that to succeed in credit-bearing entry-level courses in science, many of our students are struggling. And thank you. And not just our students in Massachusetts, but students across the country. And so as we, in Massachusetts obviously has quite a large number of, colleges where we are studying science. They're finding that students in the freshman year of science often have to repeat some of the coursework that they're doing, or enroll in courses that are non-credit bearing. So if, for instance, you went into you wanted to go into a four-year college program for science, and a lot of the students take the Accuplacer test, in Massachusetts anyway, and to find out what level or what coursework they should be taking. And some of the research that's been done across the different states of students that are taking those types of placement exams show that they are not able to enroll in a freshman level course until they pass a remedial math or remedial English. And I'm sure you can speak to that as well, and through some of the work that you've done. And yeah, we are finding that, and I certainly saw that when I worked at Northern Essex for 5 years, and I definitely saw that. And so it is a challenge for many students, and so the new ELA and math frameworks deal with that college and career readiness expectation, and so does the science, that all in the same vein of trying to make sure that our students, when they graduate, do have the skills and strengths necessary to compete in the global market, but also in a very high, intense college science field. So those are the four science, college, and career readiness standards: succeeding in entry-level credit-bearing courses, analyzing scientific phenomenon, and solving technical problems. I'll pull that up for you. Support, critique, and communicate science and technical claims and decisions, and that really does take quite a lot of analysis and synthesis to be able to appropriately define and articulate what you're trying to say when it comes to what you've studied and what you've learned, and apply the relevant mathematics in science and technical context. So this is what the new frameworks is focused on in terms of why are we making that shift. The science practices, and Margaret and I will also be able to speak to that in a sense, this is really the foundation of what we studied over the course of the last year in the STEM course that we took. And it was really about how to help elementary students develop science practices. How can we help teachers develop science practices in the classroom when it comes to creating deep science units that ask our students to really look at science in a different way, but also be able to construct and engineer and explain and argue. And so the layering, I will show you that in a little while, the layering of all of these practices goes across the content areas, ELA, math, and science. So it's kind of interesting to see them use the same language for a different content. So one of the things that we are always asking when it comes to a DOE reg, and this is what we are right now asking from the Department of Ed, what's the implementation timeline? Because we have a new standard set. We're looking at January 2014 was when the public draft was accepted by the state of Massachusetts. And the state has allowed us to begin our district planning work in 2014-2015. And that's really exactly where we are right now. We started our vertical team this year. We're looking at the planning of, what's this going to take? What's it going to look like for us to fully embrace these new standards? How is that going to impact the course structures that we have? How is that going to impact the units that we teach? What kind of materials will we need? How will we professionally develop our teachers? What are the DDMs or the district determined measures we're looking at? What kind of assessments will we work on in science? So that takes a long time. That takes a year or two to really flesh out. And so this is the time frame that we're working from based on the department's recommendation. So you'll see, though, if you have questions about MCAS, there is no change until 2017, 2018, and that's the earliest reported change that we would see in any kind of state exam, which I consider to be a good thing.
Yeah, because that gives you 4 years. And, you know, it takes teachers 4
Takes 2
years
years
to be able
really,
to
I think,
adjust the
figure out
curriculum.
what is this saying and how do we reconstruct. And then it takes another 2 years to get it under your belt and identify the assessments that go along with that.
I mean, I kind of like to see it happen sooner because I want the kids to learn more what they need to learn, but I guess it's not really that far away.
It's really not.
Well, that's the MCAS, but Pam, we're talking about the MCAS here, but
We're starting the restructuring
yeah.
planning now.
We
Right,
would
so
be
we'll be fully
making,
prepared for this at that time.
yeah, I mean, we've
It's
already.
nice to be where we are now, as
Yeah.
opposed to, you know, where we could be. Because you certainly would hate to have them adopt it and then change it 2 years later.
Yeah.
That would not
Because
work
we
out.
have lived through that.
Oh, yeah, we've seen that too. This is
Yeah.
a better timeline than some of the others we've
Yes,
dealt
it
with
is.
at the state level. So this is a very interesting graph, and I always say that when we talk at the Rogal team. This is a very interesting graph. But what it does, and I had a great experience at one of the department trainings on the science standards. We broke out, like if you took a look at that top green line across the top there, we took a really hard look at what does this look like as a K-2 standard, and then when do our students see it again, and at what grade level does it deepen, and by the time we get to high school, how does this standard grow in terms of learning for a student? So as much as I said at Vertical Team, I don't know how we will use this. I've really come to kind of like it. You might find that
be able to
surprising.
follow all the arrows.
But you really do get a conversation going about, as a pre-K to 2 standard, how does this standard grow over time for a student? So that is really important. So we will be looking at that, but I think we'll try to make it a little bit
more user-friendly.
Yes, exactly. So some of the shifts, in case you're, I'm sure you're wondering, what are the shifts? Well, the pre-K to 8 standards are integrated and they're grade-by-grade standards. So that incorporates earth science, life science, physical science, and technology and engineering. These all appear at each grade level. And so our task is really to take a look at what have we been teaching in earth science and how has that changed with the new standards. And maybe we're teaching a specific thing in life science in grade 4, but it really is now something that should be taught in grade 2 or grade 5. So we're trying to determine exactly where those shifts are and what the structures we will need to support that. So this is just similar to the strand map that I just showed you. These are this is a basic description of a coherent progression of learning, they're calling this, in the new standard. So it kind of gives you a visual and some language around how the expectation grows over the course of the grade levels. And so we've done some really interesting activities with that in our curriculum directors group, and that's the next thing we'll be looking at our next science vertical team meeting. Really taking a look at the language and what does that mean? What does that language mean and how does that translate into practice? So one of the things that we always ask is, again, what is the state recommending that we do? They're asking us to identify, and I'll just go with the bullet points, what has been moved to different grade levels based on what your current maps and trajectories show, and what has been left out of the new standards. So they're asking us to, because it's not a full acceptance, they're still looking at ways that they can shift these standards a little bit to meet our needs. What do we feel is being left out? I know Cerise read through the earlier version of the standards and gave a lot of feedback to the state, so that's what they're kind of hoping we'll continue to do until they do a full acceptance. Yeah, and really the earlier progression changed quite a bit of things, especially at the high school level, and we were very concerned about that, so she did a great job with kind of, saying, here's how that would impact us at the school level and as we prepare kids for college, so it was a good job. So the other bullet points basically deal with what's the scope in terms of change and how much greater depth is being asked of our students and at which grade level is that happening. And then a lot of people obviously have questions about MCAS. how does this change or impact the MCAS exam? We know that we're piloting Park right now. Do they see a similar experience with science happening? And they really couldn't speak to that. They said, we don't really have plans for that. Right now, we're so caught up in the framework phase, we can't think about
And it will depend on how,
what the assessment will
what
look
Park
like.
ends up looking like, because remember, it's a 2-year pilot, so it's
Right.
not even determined that Park will end up being, you know,
The Park
it
that
may
we
be
pilot.
that, it may
It could
be
be a
that the
different Park.
MCAS continues to be
Right.
the test that's given. So I think they're not willing to talk
It's
about
smart of
science
them.
yet
It's
because.
smart of them to hold back on that because they have to kind of experience this Park practice first and see how that goes. So, again, this is just another description of what I just said in terms of the MCAS assessment. One of the big questions is, you know, at the end of all of this, what will all students be able to do and know? And one of the very strong goals, I would have to say, with the new science frameworks is to open up science a little bit more for our students so that they have the capacity to appreciate the beauty and the wonder of science as opposed to the textbook learning of science, which I think many of us have experienced in our lives. And so I think the STEM component is really going to be that's the pivotal piece that we're really thinking about and planning for and trying to identify as the real launch pad for getting our students excited and much more invested in the practice of science.
Hear,
So
hear.
we're excited
Great,
about
that's
that.
right up your alley.
I'm glad that you're
Yeah.
happy. I think it's great. So we're very excited about that. So this was what I was talking to you about before when we talked about the English standards previously and the math standards. We're always looking at connections. How do these things connect? How can we align these things so that our teachers are feeling like, oh, I can understand how science is connected to nonfiction, reading and writing, and I can understand how math connects to science. So one of the big things when it comes to writing especially is the ability to construct viable arguments and critique them. And that connects to math and science and ELA. So that we felt was pretty interesting in terms of how can we use this as a launch pad for writing as well to determine our students' ability to synthesize and analyze and argue based on evidence, because we know that that's you like that? I do too. It is cool.
That's brilliant. That's a brilliant.
So we're really excited about building
That's STEM.
these components in for our teachers and our students, and to be able to build the connections as much as possible.
So when we build units, when the teachers actually, because it goes down to the teacher level, right?
Yeah.
That's a great graphic, we love that,
We
but
do
that's
love
not
that.
helpful necessarily to teachers that have to know, what is it I'm supposed to do in my
Right.
classroom? So that's a great framework, that when we start looking at what are we gonna plan for units, we need to make sure that the experiences that get built into the units tie into that.
So this speaks to
And
all
that's
the
the
work
work of
that
the
we're
vertical
doing
team.
at the vertical team level and through our administrative work and through the research we do in our own lives. You know, how do we connect these things in a viable way? So this just for us, who have been talking about this for 2 years, really just pulled it all together. We're like, that's what we want to do.
And right now, like at the elementary level, I think the teachers would tell you that, you know, they don't really have as much available to them and as much direction as they feel they need. You know, I mean, we're doing science, but in our science units do line up with the standards. But as the standards have changed, we're finding that there are gaps. So there will be a need to have a more defined elementary curriculum that lines up. That's the beauty of vertical teams, is you don't have elementary people just one grade level talking, you have people
Right.
talking across the continuum. So you see where things connect. But I do anticipate that a major change in the science curriculum will come, but we also have to be mindful of our teachers' ability to do that. I mean, their trajectory has been this at the elementary level. So they really don't have time to breathe. So, you know, obviously the English language arts and the math are falling into place, right? And, you know, we're making some tweaks based on the standards. But this is a different animal, science. Science will require much more attention and change and support for elementary teachers. So we have to be mindful of that. And that's why having them start now at the early stages, they'll have, if you lay it out, in 2 years, when we're really ready to make a pretty significant adoption, they'll have had 2 more years of implementing all of the other standards, and they'll be aware of where the math and the science and the English can connect. But you can't have everything can't be new, and you have
All
to
the
be able,
time.
and you can't be able to master that.
We do know that.
Yeah, and I was an elementary teacher and a principal and a curriculum director, so I totally get that. That the elementary world is very different, and elementary teachers tend to be generalists. Some people love science and really embrace it, but others are sort of scared of it, right? They're not quite so sure about it. So we know that there's some significant work that needs to be done in science that we'll be coming and talking to you about at the time that it's most appropriate, and we're ready to bring it forward.
And the people in the vertical team are this is what is getting exciting for them. And so, it's the right time and the right place for these people to study this and think about it and plan for it and think about how it will impact their peers and their colleagues. We can't ask everyone to read and understand everything all the time at the same time to the same level. It's so much going on. As you can see, I'm up here every time talking to you about something new, and all the teachers are doing these things that we're talking about. So it is quite
Phenomenal what the amount of work you.
It is.
And it's truly
It
phenomenal
is.
that these teachers give their time.
They do, and I say it every time, but they come after school on their own time and really participate in amazing things. So I can never say thank you enough.
Yes, we can't thank them.
So incorporating STEM, I would like Margaret to come up so she could participate in the conversation with me. So we could talk a little about the course that we have been taking over the course. It's been a great course. And it really opened our eyes in terms of how we can think about, as we build a new school, it's a great opportunity for us to think about what are some of the practices that we would like to embed in this new structure and in this new way of living. And it was funny, during the conversation that you had about the turf field, Megan said, God, you could tell them.
Science, we can do this.
Yes, kids can do this. We can go
Love it.
there. We can test
Would love
that.
that,
We can
yeah.
make graphs. We
Kids
can
would love to
figure it
test the
out.
soil.
They'd love to take
Kids
the
love to
story.
get involved in soil.
What do we need the machinery for? Get the kids
That's
out there,
right.
right?
It's great. It's great because I don't know if we would have always thought of that like right off the bat, but that was instantaneous. Like, oh, we could do that. So I liked that.
That's my first line of defense.
So one of the main points about STEM that I certainly learned from the course that we took was that it is a major federal agenda. And that's a good thing. And because I think what we're realizing as we look at in the global market and we look at our students that are graduating, and I'm sure you know many people that are in the process of graduating college right now, and you think about the majors that they're graduating from and the courses, the fields that they're trying to get into, one of the things that I think the entire country has realized is that we do not have enough students graduating in a STEM-related field to participate in the work that we have to offer in our own country. And so that's one of the questions that this STEM is kind of supporting, or one of the problems that they're finding at the graduate level, that we need to represent our students better in terms of science and technology, engineering and math, and so give supportive structures to them so that we can help support our future workforce, and our students will have a better capacity to engage in these practices or in these courses because they have the information and the knowledge that they need. One of the most amazing things that I learned, and I talked to Paula about it, and she went, oh yeah, I can see that, was, I think I said it at the Math Vertical Team meeting, or the meeting that I did here on the Math Vertical Team, was that one of the #1 indicators of whether or not a student will pass through 4 years of college in the STEM-related major has to do with their capacity to engage in and work within the Algebra 2 structure. And that is a huge determinant factor of the students who are able to graduate high school and take a 4-year science, technology, engineering, or math degree.
Yeah.
So that's pretty amazing when you think about how all the work that we do gets them to this place, and then what do we do to ensure that they can truly move forward with wherever it is they want to go. And so some of the interesting things, and we were just talking about it as we're sitting in the seats, Georgetown High School is already doing a lot of this. So you're going to be very impressed when you see what the federal agenda is and then compare it to what we're already doing without even knowing that was some of the expectation. So this is just a visual, which for those of you who have struggled, yourself maybe in science or math, that you may find this interesting. And they did this research study on information. I think the study came out in about, I don't want to say it had to have come out in 2011 because that's the final date we have here. But in 2005, there were 4 million ninth graders. The high school class of 2005, I should say. So this is the class of 2001. 4 million ninth graders. By the time our ninth graders graduated, we only had 2,799,000 graduate. So we have definitely seen the drop, not obviously in Georgetown, but across the country. We've seen a lot of drops of ninth graders who are dropping out of college. The Melinda and Bill Gates Foundation has done huge research studies on why students drop out of high school. What does that mean? How can we help them? And so their research really pushes through the agenda of fixing the high school dropout problem. But as they kind of followed these kids through their graduation process and into college, they realized that by the time our students graduated their 4-year degree, we only had 166,000 students who fully completed a 4-year science, technology, engineering, or math degree. And so when you look at the capacity for the student's ability to do that kind of work, and then the end result.
And to balance that with what the need is. what the need
Right,
is.
and then when you balance that against the workforce need, the
Yeah.
global market, the
Yeah.
fact that we have people that could pick up a job anywhere in any part of the country or any part of the world, really. And you think about that, it's pretty eye-opening.
And who's filling that void? Just other countries?
Other countries, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I read something recently that the fastest growing fields are like, biotech, engineering in that area, and computer programming, things in the computer field, and those are both, STEM.
Yeah, the
fields.
things that are STEM-related fields may surprise you too.
Yeah.
It may not be something that your mind instantly goes to. So there are a
Yeah.
lot of things that are considered STEM-related fields, but sometimes students are turned off by by the difficulty of the math or the difficulty of the science or maybe the technicality of the writing, because this comes with a different format for writing too, and analysis. So there's a lot in there that we could look at and try to figure out how can we ensure that our students are really getting what we feel they need. But I thought that was a pretty sad picture, and I hate to show it because it does make me sad, because I hate to think that there's all this capacity out there, but this is the end result.
It really demonstrates the need for a renewed, a major focus on the STEM.
And I think that's why we have the new frameworks. They finally have been able to kind of, coalesce all their research
And
and.
why they're so important.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if it's just because I'm so interested in it personally, but for example, the show that's on Cosmos.
Oh, I love that show.
And I don't know, but there just seems to me to be an energy out there that there's an interest growing in that arena,
Yeah.
which is, if that's not STEM, I don't know what is.
It's so great. It is great. I mean, my children watch it, and I'm thinking, this is amazing. Now, who would have thought that? And I think I texted Margaret when I said, you have to watch the show Cosmos. It's great. It's just, you're right, there is a resurgence of information, and they're making it much more interesting for the general public. Whereas before, this may have been something you just saw on the Sci-Fi Channel, and you never paid a second, look at it. So I think with technology and this technology that our students are using too, they're much more adept at learning about this and being interested in it than maybe our generation was, where we didn't have the capacity for that technology yet. We didn't have it in our hands and available to us like they do now. So that does change things.
I think for a lot of kids, if you get a degree in any of your sciences, math, etc., it's a very locked-in degree. In other words, you have a very specialized skill set. And it does not seem that your job market is as broad to them. It's like, I have a degree in biology, what can I do? Well, I can do these few things. Well, if I have a degree in English, I can do these things. If I have a degree in communication, oh, look at all the jobs. And they don't see that there are jobs out there necessarily, because we talk STEM. Like STEM is something.
Yeah.
It's not something. If you have a degree in biology, that's a STEM career, but it doesn't translate to that.
Right, it's really pulling those two things together and showing them that this is how we can
And for-
support
and-
you in your process of looking at all the different things you can do with a biology degree.
And for many of these degrees, what turns a lot of the kids off is, can you get a job with a bachelor's? Not necessarily. You have to go for the graduate degree if you want to get the job that they're looking for. And then they start to go, oh my gosh, I'm already so overloaded with college loans. How am I going to go to the graduate school? So there's some roadblocks there
Yeah,
that you have to
there's more
sort of,
to it, yeah.
that you really have to work with, like the guidance department.
do.
And things
Right.
like that, to really say, okay, no, look, you know,
Right.
yes, this is what you
Always
want to
thought.
go for, go for it. There are opportunities and there's ways to get there. And I think that is something we really need to impart on the kids. We talk about, oh, there's, you know, tons of jobs, and they start to try and think, well, if I get a degree in
Well,
math,
you know, because
where am I
This is
going?
Yes, and this is where
Excellent
why
point.
you do what
Excellent
you do
point.
is so important. And if that excitement of STEM at the core, the spirit of it, is what engages the student, then you're not looking for the job first. That is what drives you.
Right, this is my passion, and
What
I'm
is the
going
pa-
with that, and
is
I'll
it-
find the
yeah,
job,
you'll
or the job will
find
find
it,
me.
your job find you.
You know, sometimes that does happen too.
As a part of the STEM workshop, we went to visit STEM businesses. And I went to Analogic, I don't remember the name, I'm sorry to say. But what is interesting is that most of the businesses, one was in Danvers, one was in Peabody, they've already teamed up with area high schools. So they're collaborating. They bring in students into their companies, they're visiting the high schools. So of course, you know, I'm all about Georgetown, what about Georgetown? So I think that's also a goal, is that to incorporate the STEM, the curriculum in the elementary school, but also to really find a business that will collaborate with Georgetown High. And, you know, so it's not just us telling students about what kinds of careers, but you have people really coming in and you get the kids into these businesses, and it's fascinating because there are just so many ways that children can use that education. So.
Tomorrow, I'm going with a group of superintendents to Cambridge because we're going to the Center for Innovation. And the purpose of that is because we want to take a look at how this all could translate into, it's really not about a thing, it's really about an approach, it's about a belief system, you know, and it does incite, it's insightful, you know, it does invite that excitement. So I'm really curious to see what I'm gonna see there, you know, because it really talks about how systems are built around this notion and concept of innovation. It's not, we teach an innovation course. How do you structure things that you really do mean, you know, every class has the opportunity to look at it through the lens of innovation. You know, how do we have that flexibility? So
It's gonna be a fun
it is kind of interesting, yeah. Okay, Jules, keep going
So
here.
when we look at the state STEM goals, I really compare this to Georgetown High School. Or even Georgetown Public Schools, because we do have quite a bit of things that are going on in the schools that would be STEM related or STEM identified. We just may not be calling it that specifically. So it's going to be very interesting in the course of the next year and a half as we try to identify what exactly would we consider to be STEM work that we're already doing, and how can we identify that. So one of the things that the state is expecting to do is to increase students' interest in STEM. And I think that has a lot to do with what Cerise said. Here's the things that you can do with a math degree. It's not just become a math professor. You know what I'm saying? There are certainly other things that you can do, and here are all the ways you can apply that type of work to the future. Increase STEM achievement among pre-K to 12 students. Increase the percentage of students who demonstrate a readiness for college study in STEM-related fields. And I was just talking to Cerise while we were sitting there. We do have a 4-year of math requirement and a 3-year of lab science requirement already existing in the school district. So that.
Do we know, is there a way, I'm sure this question's come up before, that we can know which of our students are, or what the percentage of students is who graduate from Georgetown who are required to take remedial courses when they go into college? We know we have a high percentage of students going on to 2 or 4-year colleges.
I'm
But
not
do
sure
we
if
know?
we have that personal information about you mean the credit bearing versus the non-credit bearing? Is that what you're talking about?
You want to increase the percent of students who demonstrate readiness for college level study. How are we measuring that? By our standards or by the college's standards?
Well, that would be measured, right, that would be measured through the entry into college at the Accuplacer exam,
and so
from
that's
the
what I'm
very
saying, do
gates
we
of
even know today?
college.
do we know that today about students who've graduated?
I'm not sure if
from
the
Georgetown?
AccuPlacer results are sent back to the sending high schools, but I can find out about that.
I mean,
Would be
Peter,
really-
some of that, I think, Naviance has the capability to do some of that, but you do have to rely on student reporting.
Student reporting back to the high school that
Right,
they
'cause it's a
graduated from.
confidentiality issue otherwise. We
Exactly.
have
Like,
no-
they don't send out our, our students' AccuPlacer exams.
can't even give a
I'm not
parent
sure
information
that we
because over
have that
18,
as
so-
general knowledge, but I can
They don't
find
give
out,
it to
that'd be
us.
interesting.
I just think it would be really interesting to know.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. I used to test my freshman class on the AccuPlacer just to see where they were when they came to the high school, just to get a sense of that, so it can be done.
Well, I can tell you that when the kids come back,
yes,
we can't get rid of them. They're always coming
Yeah.
back. They report very high success.
Yes.
They're always very, I took this class. It was great. We covered a lot of this. We just went into some more depth. And they
They
don't
feel
come back.
confident-
They don't come back
confident
and say, "Oh
about
my
that.
gosh, I went and
No, that
went
is
into
true.
my first physics class and I was just floundering." No, they come in. They say,
Well,
"Oh, this is."
I mean, I've never been talked to a high school where they didn't say that about their students.
That's
And-
true.
And so the students who come back and talk to you are the ones who've experienced
they've had
success.
success, yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're proud and they come back. But I'm sure it's not 100% of the students
good
at
gravy,
Georgetown who
no.
come back to talk to you. And that's really where I think, I do
Well, that's a
feel
good
like
use of data to figure out
we
how we
don't,
can
there's
do
this
that.
missing piece. There's the graphic you showed us where, we're losing students, but I think it's a handicap that public schools have, is that there is that gap. Well, cause, you go to, oh, we're doing a great job, so many of our kids are going to college, and they come back and they're happy, it's like, really? So which high
Which
schools?
kids aren't, yeah.
Yeah, where are the kids that aren't doing that? And we just don't know that. I don't know how you solve that.
I don't either. I don't either. But I am happy about the fact that we are already doing these things in our school system without the
absolutely.
advanced warning of the state, saying, please try to get your student, we're already doing that. That's practice that we feel is important, so I think that's a
But
great
that
thing.
is data that we talk, I know I've talked to Steve Umbro in guidance about it. Because, it is important for us to have some information about whether or not what we're doing is effective, for all kids, right? Because it's the whole all kid thing. So we did talk about how could we gather more information from students about their experience
Yeah, after high school.
after high school, yeah.
Yeah, we talked about sending out a survey and.
Yeah, so Steve and I talked about that, and he did, he's really busy right now with MCAS and all that, but that is something we'd like to do more with. To try to figure out, we're talking at Public Relations about doing, staff, student surveys, the schools do surveys in their schools to help them with their school improvement planning. But a district survey that, there's a lot
an
of things we
alumni
could gain from
An
that, or an
alumni
alumni survey or something,
Would be really nice.
that you can put out. I think those are all things that are important to do. We just have to
Think about what
figure
that
out
would
how
look
they all
like.
work and
Put it on
Right.
the list.
put it on the
Things
list.
to
It's
do.
the best way to do that. Put it on the list.
Put it in with the reunion.
Yeah.
The reunion paperwork. You know you're gonna mail that to everyone, right?
Thank you.
Okay, so one of the other things that we are looking at the state level and certainly in Georgetown is how can we increase post-secondary degrees? So how, what kind of students do we have that are looking at that as the plan or the expectation for freshman and sophomore year in their colleges of choice? The other thing the state has a goal for is to increase the number and percentage of classes led by effective educators, and that means people that are trained in the practices of science, and we know that certification expectations exist for us in terms of who teaches science and what their background is. But also, what I did recently find out about is now they have certainly changed some requirements for certification, but they've also added STEM certification capacities. So that's something we're looking into too for our teachers. How can we offer things like that? Or where can we find things like this for our teachers to attend if they so choose? And to align the STEM education programs with the workforce needs of their key economic sectors, and that has a lot to do with what Margaret spoke of, going to the businesses that surround us and talking to talking to the business, asked them to do partnerships with our schools. I think that's where we're headed next, so that should be very
And there are
exciting
people,
for
I
us.
just remember it was a one-shot deal, but I don't know who used to, Debbie DeFruscia, I think, used to organize the career day. And, you know, one of the things that was always very interesting is the parents and members of the community that would come in and talk about their careers. So you could do something like that with people who are in STEM careers.
Well, we had a parent,
And-
come into kindergarten this morning,
Mhm.
and she's a chemist in Boston.
Yeah, is
She
that
was-
the woman with all the, yeah, it was amazing what she had with her.
And she was working with the kindergarten, doing, experimenting on different types of bird beaks and how they would gather their food. So the
Mhm.
children were using, clothespins and spoons and
Yeah,
toothpicks
that's
to pick
right.
up different kinds of materials to show them how how a bird gathers their food.
That's cool.
So, in terms of next steps, one of the things I didn't put up here, but I will talk about in a minute, has to do with discovery camps and things like that that we can think about. How can we build some practices in now before we get the new school open? We've been approached from a couple of different companies that offer like a week-long summer camp on science and technology, some discovery zone type work, so we're looking at that maybe for next year. We've started a course at the middle school for next year called Foundations of Technology and Engineering. We're very excited about that. At the high school level, Engineering for the Future, we're very excited about that as well. And we're also planning to look at how we will incorporate our STEM practices at the elementary level so that we can plan a K-12 trajectory that helps us build the practices of science throughout the grade levels. So it will be very fun and very exciting. And obviously right in line with all the work that we're doing to revise curriculum. But, you know, we certainly have some big important work in front of us.
Julie, is Georgetown's next steps in Foundation for Technology and Engineering in the Future,
Mhm.
is that part of the umbrella of STEM?
Yeah.
The reason I asked that question, I guess, is so I had mentioned this the last time this was presented, and I looked up in Webster's the definition of engineering just for myself, and it says the science concerned with putting scientific knowledge to practical use, divided into different branches as civil, electrical, mechanical, chemical, the planning, designing, construction, and management of machinery, roads, bridges, buildings, waterways.
Mhm.
There's nothing in that definition that implies all of this other wonderful stuff that I'm hearing.
I'd say the definition totally implies it.
Well,
Because
in the
without-
words that it's used, in the words that the Webster's dictionary is giving you.
All right, perhaps, but I mean, I guess
Right.
from my perspective, it's like, yes, because for every single one of those fields, bar none,
Yeah.
it is science, it is technology, it is engineering, and it is mathematics, and it is creativity. There you
go. That's what he needs to hear.
And
is
innovation.
But the only word here
That is
used is
STEM.
engineering.
That's because those are the names of the textbooks.
Well, maybe it
Yeah.
shouldn't be the name of a textbook.
And
Maybe it
that's
should
also
be-
the name of the standards and the frameworks.
Yeah.
The
Well,
frameworks
maybe-
are specifically called
Right.
technology, engineering.
Yes.
They are not called anything else. So we have to go by their their terminology. Now, what is in those publications, what is in the course, that is a whole different ballgame. Because when
I
we say
just-
biology, that's a word, it's the study of life. Well, you start to open up that door, and my God, the number of roads that you
Oh,
can take
absolutely.
outside that door are massive.
Absolutely.
And it's the same thing here, there's absolutely no difference.
So my only point is that I think words mean something. And when I read this and when children read this, I think it's very limiting, and it actually does a disservice to everything you're talking about.
We opened the door for that Engineering the Future course, 40 kids signed up like that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so.
Drop of a hat.
Which is awesome.
So one of the things that, because we're going
And
to.
that was like the first 2 days
It
of
was the first
scheduling.
2 days. I mean, we
That
were in
is
the hallway
literally
saying,
poof.
wow.
Yeah, I think it's
Great.
definitely an interest.
That's why he wanted to
But
get
I
things
think
so
what, I
quickly.
think Rob is
Yeah.
just wanting
The
to
paperwork.
be sure of, is
Absolutely.
that, when the course is taught, that the textbook is one tool.
Right.
But that there are opportunities for, and Cerise and I had an interesting conversation before the meeting. We wanna make sure there's opportunities for students to be able to tinker and explore and create and, do things that are not, a textbook kind of organized.
Yeah, what the state wants to promote is engineering thinking.
Yes.
Well,
That's what they want.
And that's what we
Why-
hear about in the
Why do
STEM with
we
the
have-
engineering
do
practices.
we
It's the
literally
same
have to
language.
adhere exactly to the state says this is the word you use?
Well, I think,
I think that's
we,
one-
I
It's
think
one
we
of the
might be
concepts that
overthinking
everything
it. I think if we
Okay,
keep
never
it,
mind,
if we
never
keep
mind.
it, if we keep it at a conceptual level, which I think is what you wanna do, Rob,
Yeah, yes, it
is,
is. It is.
I think the message I hear from you, and I think everybody hears, is that you don't want us to define it so narrowly that
Correct.
we don't have the opportunity to make sure that students are involved in authentic experiences with hands-on, project-based, to really immerse themselves in a process, as opposed to there's an end product and it has to look like this.
Yeah.
Is that, am I
Yeah, yeah,
representing that?
absolutely,
So
absolutely.
I think we can work with it. And
you for
other
bearing
thing
with
is,
me.
in terms of the textbook, you know, one of the things that the school committee has the purview for is when there's gonna be a new textbook, we go through a process here where they do the two-step adoption. So if there is a recommended textbook that you really would like to see, if we could bring it before the committee, they could have a chance to look at it, that might help Rob, because he might look at it and say, oh, wow, you know, this has some great overarching, you know, activities that are really in the vein of what he's hoping to see. It's just, we don't know, because we don't see it.
Right.
So that would be great if you could do that, and then we'll get that, so you can have it in place for September. Okay, perfect.
So, Rob, you're gonna love this.
I already do.
Oh, no, because this is really the heart of what, if Margaret and I could put it into visual, I think, and into, you know, someone else's experience with what we think STEM could be for our students. I think this would pretty much exemplify that. And it's not what you think it is. And so it's very creative and interesting, and you're going to see some innovation here, and a young child who just got it and went with it, and it was great. I can't show the whole thing, so
Yeah,
obviously
yeah,
it'd be
yeah,
forever.
we
But I
have
will
limited
show you a
items.
snippet of it just to get you interested, and then I'll put the link on my website, and you can certainly check it out. And I'm going to pray that we can show it to your children. They will. When we got our
Many
fabric,
recycles.
very exciting day.
Yeah, we lost everything. Are you fireable?
Okay, well, you know what, Jules, I think maybe we can make sure it's
I will-
available to the
on your
committee.
website, on the
you know.
curriculum and.
On curriculum instruction, I'll
Mm-hmm.
link
Okay.
to this site, and you'll be able, and I can actually add 1, 2, and 3, because there are
Okay.
2 more additional signs that, or videos that go along with it, so you'll really love it. It's very
And we have lots of things we're talking about that we're gonna wanna incorporate. We'll come back again. This is not the only opportunity, you know, but as you know, as we built the topics for the year, we're trying to focus on those things that are part of our strategic goals. And this is one of those major initiatives. So it's very exciting, and the teachers' voice is so important, because they're the ones every day that are doing it. They can help inform us of what the questions are, what do we need to be thinking about, and it just elevates everybody's level of professionalism and excitement to be involved in looking at best practices and research, but it is work, there's no doubt about it, but it is exciting stuff.
This is exciting stuff. You guys,
Yes.
thank you so much for everything that you're doing. I'm seriously, this is incredible.
Thank
This is absolutely incredible.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Appreciate it.
Second.
All right, we do appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank you for your patience, too.
Yes,
No problem.
definitely.
This means I can go to work late tomorrow morning.
Sure, that's a good try, Cerise.
Just let the students know you'll be late, they'll be happy to sleep in.
That's right, the teacher's not there 10 minutes, they leave, right? That old unwritten rule.
Oh, we used to give ours 15.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, you were generous.
Okay, so let's see where we are.
Well,
We're at the information.
anybody have any questions about the superintendent's information for the committee? Which I'd love to read.
The only thing I would, Peter, did you read this the same way? In the Ask Read letter? I was so hoping that they were going to, as soon as the, Pembroke started to become, that it was really gonna happen, the ground was broken, that they would say, we're gonna take you off warning. But as I read this, it says that school officials, let's see, wait a minute, schools accreditation status will be reviewed when the committee considers the evaluation report resulting from the decennial visit. So it sounds like they're gonna let us know what that looks like when they come in 2016?
Jay Allison told us, until kids are in that new school.
Okay.
They're not
Okay.
going
Okay.
to reconsider, and so we're so close to their visit that.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that what that boils down to? Just
Yes,
With
they're coming in
children?
2016.
Okay.
We just don't know when. We're still waiting for that. But yeah, I mean, you know, that whole process has been very interesting because it's almost 10 years and, you know, the building's been a long road coming and we never got put on probation, which generally their publication says if you don't fix the problem in the building, if it's a building problem in 2 years, you go to probation. So I think Peter's done a great job with
Great
his
job.
staff and, you know, trying to, you know, keep
Well, from the
report,
letters,
all
you
the
can tell
reports.
that they appreciate
Right.
that we are trying
That's
to
right.
do things as
Yeah.
quickly and
They have a reasonable
as possible,
progress standard.
especially
as
along with the
long as-
budget
As long as you're doing it.
ramifications.
And I feel confident that, you know, if we keep moving in the direction we're moving, that when they come in 16, they're not gonna be as concerned about the building. They still might find some things, but most everything that was in that list, you know, will have been at least addressed in some way. Didn't you agree with that, Peter?
If the renovation.
If the renovation passes, yep, yep. Okay, but I just wanted to make sure that we looked at that together.
Okay, do we want to, subcommittee reports, subcommittee reports?
I don't think there's much to report.
No, negotiating, we,
Yep, that's one.
we met, but things are going along fine. Moving along good.
Moving good?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Old business, that we have the Baker Adams Scholarship application that, we want to hopefully approve tonight. Since
Could I suggest that we talk about the calendar before that, cause I let everybody go home kinda late? Then we can talk about the Baker Adams. Okay, so here we are. What is in the, and of course, you know Laura's been out, so my intention was to be able to provide for you tonight, the back page to this, so you have a little more information. I worked with administrators on that on Tuesday, but what Laura had included in the, and I will definitely provide that for you, but what Laura had included is sort of the general framework for where we, you know what, let me just think for a minute. I wanna make sure that this is the most current one. Because we made some significant changes to this. I believe it is, cause I gave it to her when I came back. So, yes, it is, because I can tell you. So, couple of changes that I don't wanna go through the debacle on the election issue again next year.
Right, I was glad
And even
to
though I
see
don't
this.
like where we've got the professional development days necessarily, I'm recommending that we put them and then we don't have school on the days of those
That's very
first two
smart.
elections. So, the first one you'll see happens on September 9th. It's a Tuesday, it's the week we get, you know, the first week of school, but, you know, it just avoids a whole lot of other things that are a problem. Overview, we did reduce one full day. So we have 3 full days in the calendar as opposed to 4. And we did, put in, 3 half days?
Yeah.
3 or 4,
Three
3 or 4
half
half
days.
days, okay, 3 half days.
No, wait a minute, 3 full and 4 half.
Or, that's it, 3, 4, and full half. 3 full and 4 half days, right. And, you know, our thinking behind that is, it'll allow us to organize the professional development. Some of the professional development that we can organize in half days makes sense. Others, we feel like we really need the full day. So the intention was to try to get out earlier in June and yet still be able to have quality professional development time. And as you know, we worked with the union to try to figure out how we could extend some of those days by an hour, so that we were
Right.
working instead of 2-hour increments, 3 hours. What this doesn't do, I was shooting for 30 hours of PD, it doesn't get us there, but it gets us close. So this is what we'd like to try for next year. And the other thing we paid attention to is there's some months you notice there's no PD. And that's primarily because that's a month for MCAS, for example, or there's a vacation in that month, you know, perhaps, and, you know, there's other things going on, conferences or whatever. So what this does represent is where we have PD, where we have parent conferences, and the last day of school, I think originally was projected to be the 18th, and this gets us to the 16th. And I think it represents a compromise based on what we heard from the public, and it doesn't force us to, abandon what we feel we need for our teachers.
Yep.
Yet it does respect, it's still the half days, but unfortunately, we feel that the professional development is important. I will tell you that I did speak with Joe Patella from the union, because the question was, could the PD days be before school starts? He did not want to take that on this year. When you asked me that question, remember I said I wouldn't make that commitment, because, there may be a sentiment that, if you're starting after Labor Day, then everybody starts after Labor Day. That's a broader conversation that would take a little bit more time. I didn't feel we had it, so I concur with Joe that that's not something we should try to take on right now. That's really a process and discussion. Maybe more teachers than not would prefer to do that, but it was too late in the game.
Sure.
And we've just got too many other things on the plate. It was not the right conversation to have at this time, in the best interest of everybody. So, if you have any specific questions about this, happy to answer them.
Can I just say, I really like the half of Professional Development Day on February the 4th, which is a Wednesday, because that's in the ski club calendar.
Okay.
And we tried to do that this year, but it was a snow day, but the kids got so excited just about the idea. And
Well, that
parents
happens in a couple
organized
places, yeah.
a pizza party, and the kids were gonna get like a real half day of skiing at no extra cost.
Mhm.
And the ski program does go from grades 3 to 12, so that really affects a lot of,
Okay,
a
well,
lot
that's
of
good to
kids.
know.
So a Wednesday in, January, February, that's within the ski program calendar is great.
Okay. So the election impact is the 9th of September, and, where is the other one? It's election day is
November 11th?
November 4th. That should be
I know, it's hard to
bold. That should,
contemplate all
Yeah, that should
that
be
should be
bold.
bold,
Given
yeah.
where we
okay.
are.
So the asterisks
We'll have
are
a
the.
nice summer.
half days, early dismissal.
There's 3 of them in December.
December looks, December.
I know.
Is not.
I know. We agree with you,
But I do think November doesn't look, December,
November used to look awful when we put the conferences there,
yeah.
but we had to move the conferences to December, so that's where that goes.
I know, it just,
And what's December 18th? Why is there an asterisk there?
that's,
Oh, why is there an asterisk there? I think that was that conferences? folks?
it says half PD day, early oh, the
No,
18th.
No, the 18th.
Yeah, there's no, it doesn't say, but yeah.
I don't know the answer to that, because I don't have the back page, so I will have to ask about that.
So the 4th, the 10th, and then we don't know about the 18th, and then
Yeah.
we get out of school for winter
Yes.
vacation in December.
Right, so it's a full day on the 23rd.
But you know what, Carol, I'm
Well,
just
do
noticing.
you remember that,
I
Margaret?
think this is incorrect, because remember we moved March conferences to the 5th? It shouldn't be the 19th, it should be the 5th. That's correct.
Okay, so, you know what?
Maybe this isn't
Okay.
the right one.
This might not be the right one.
Calendar
But, so, that's unfortunate.
She came in my office.
So I think we might have moved that, Barbie, which is why it's not listed there. I think we might have thought the same thing as you did, but I don't know that.
Which?
The 18th.
18th may not really be a half day.
That's right, it may not be.
It may.
So is this moot?
Okay.
So I
Yeah,
think it is, well, you know what, maybe we could do is, if we're gonna have a meeting next week to talk about the soil stuff, we can just put this on the agenda.
Correct this and.
We'll correct it,
Mhm.
and,
Or you think you have it corrected, we just don't have it.
you know, flexibility, gotta be flexible.
Yep,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Well, I was
Gotta be
thinking,
flexible.
commenting though, it just, I was gonna call it a curveball that you were thrown at the last minute about elections, but it was really more of a knuckleball.
It was some kind of ball, I do it.
Well, didn't you say there were 4 elections next year though?
Last minute.
She said, well, I don't know where the election is in, if there's one in,
We have September, November, is there one in May?
there's one in May,
There
I
has
don't
to be
know.
one
There has to be one in
Well,
May.
all we were going with
Somebody's
was what she filled out on the paper,
Yeah.
what Jan filled out on the paper, and she didn't put one there, so I could follow,
know
I
at
have
the
time
meeting
to
she
obviously.
said 4 next.
No, she said there are 3 1 year and 1 3 in 1 year and 1 the following
Okay,
year.
so May, there is one.
I don't know, so I'm gonna, now I have
But
time,
But we can't.
I'll ask Jan,
But I'm.
but I don't wanna add another date
I
in
don't
the
wanna
year.
add another day,
No.
you know.
So,
December won't look as bad if that 18th isn't, is not
yeah,
being taken as a
yeah.
half day, but otherwise, that December,
Yep.
looks tough.
And the hard part is, it is a balance, right? I mean, I really worry if we don't do PD with our staff. You see all of these initiatives that teachers are expected to implement, and, that doesn't get done always just after school. I mean, some of that time gets built in during the day when we can have all of the voices, not just the voices of a smaller group.
Right.
So I think that
Okay, well,
I'll
we can
follow up
decide.
with Jan on the,
The
just
May,
so we
April,
know
May.
if there's one. Because she may say to me, you know what, the ones that are most important are the May and November, or May and September, so we may have to look at how we can, but I really would be reluctant to add another day.
Yeah, no, I don't.
I would. And half days, having less half days doesn't help you to
Mhm.
that end, because the half days count as school days. They count as, which is why a lot of places that are doing PD are doing half days, because it doesn't
Right.
add to their calendar. But I'm gonna ask Jan about is there an election in May? And I'm gonna go back again and look at the calendar the administrators and I did and check particularly for the 18th of December.
Okay.
Okay? Okay, sorry about that, Laura's been out, so obviously she didn't quite have enough time to,
Sure.
but I think it's okay. I'm just mindful of the time, because I know parents are getting anxious about it. So that's why I'm suggesting we don't wait till the 10th. If we have this meeting, it would be great to do it sooner. Okay? All right, I think you guys are all set. Thank you so much.
After all that.
After all that.
And once we decide, we can post it on the website.
Oh, absolutely, we would, we'd get it right out to parents, because it is important for them
Yeah,
to
they're
plan.
planning vacations and things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so now we will talk about the
Teachers'
Baker
trip.
Adams
Yeah,
scholarship application.
That makes sense.
What do you guys think of it?
Lorraine had a couple of comments, but I think they were worked in, right? They were accommodated for.
Yeah,
They were tiny things, they weren't.
they
she-
were, like, she had questioned, if all Georgetown, if it was just Georgetown high school students that were given the application.
Anybody who
So-
lives in Georgetown,
Right,
any
so I
student who
explained
lives in
that to her.
Georgetown.
She liked, the letter of rec.
Yeah.
And she liked the scoring, having a scoring guide. Those were
Which I
the
think
comments
the
I
scoring-
recall.
The scoring guide is going to be
Very good.
very good.
Yeah, very helpful.
Um,
I was just curious, I think it's great, it was just a question, how did the percentages of weight get determined?
It took a long time.
A lot of conversation.
Given choice, give and
Oh
take,
my
give and
gosh.
take. It was, we were like, should that? Do you want,
No?
I don't wanna open that.
Well,
can. I was just
I mean,
curious.
we wanted to acknowledge financial need and letter of recommendation, but we didn't wanna give it as the same weight as, when we look at the scholarship, we sort of look at, the balance, so.
Well, it comes back to what we felt
Baker
Baker
Adams.
Adams would have, we were
Yeah.
trying to be aligned with what he wanted, so
Right.
when we talked to Chief Cudmore.
Yep.
And he made it clear to us that he wasn't looking for the
brightest.
straight A student, and nor was he looking for the most needy student in town.
Right.
That was really, he wanted somebody who could represent themselves as really being interested in their in furthering their
Furthering
education and serving the community. And so we figured the essay was the best way to get that.
Based on the way you describe it, I think the percentages hit it right on the head, and it's going to create a different pool of applicants, which I
That's
think
what
is
we- Right, it
absolutely
might, yeah.
wonderful.
We felt that we needed to, that there was a perception in Georgetown that this was for the top academic
Right.
students, and that was not necessarily in the spirit of Baker Adams. And so we tried to, that's what we wanted to do, was to convey something that more, we hope, reflects what his wishes were.
We don't expect this to be, we're critiquing it for, necessary, we want a well-written essay, but it's
Yeah.
really about the spirit and the content and the message that comes through the essay. And the academics are weighted here, because it
Mhm.
is important.
Yeah.
But it's not the top weight, which seemed to be what happened before.
We want more students to apply. I mean, we want more students to feel that they have a chance and not to go, oh, well, I'm not, in the top 10% of my class, so I'm not gonna apply, cause
And that
that's
does
only.
seem so much more in keeping with the spirit of.
Right.
It really does. I think you did a
Well, we
great
should-
job.
yeah, we
But I
can
do
try
think
it.
it's important too that the guidance office explains that to the
Oh,
kids that come in
Kids,
for applications too, right? That we
Yeah,
want it to
absolutely.
be,
When I asked them about what the district, because we were trying to work with a timeline, right, to get this approved, so we could get it to guidance. When do students, have the opportunity to start getting the applications? And she said, after April vacation, they make scholarships available. So a couple things can happen. I mean, I think that, Peter would be amenable if, anybody from the school committee wanted to actually address students, about it, if there was an interest, people who were interested in applying, could get a little session on it.
Is there any
Really
way
depends.
to notify the student body across the board that there is a shift in this year?
Yeah.
And so, because I have a hunch, there's just already an impression, understanding that it's the same as
Yeah.
last
Yeah.
year, and
Well,
people
I
won't even
think-
look.
Yeah, well, again, I think there's lots of ways to do that, but one thing could be done, somebody on the school committee could draft a letter that, when these are, but just, it's right on the top, saying, there's a change in the application process this year, this is our focus, this is what this is what we're really looking for.
And every
You know,
student,
and then
every student gets that.
Every
Maybe you
student
and
who
I
takes
could-
it could.
Yeah,
work on
well,
it.
I'm
or
thinking
even
of giving it to students that don't just pick it up, though.
I'm thinking maybe something that could even be read over, like, morning announcements at the
That-
high school.
I'm thinking
Something
more of
that
that,
says,
like.
the Baker Adams Scholarship is, applications are available. Please note that the school committee has made changes to this application to encourage a more diverse pool of applicants. And.
Encourage all of you to check it out this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, you certainly could do that, but you also could have something you could attach to it that basically, I think there's a variety of ways you could do it, but that's a way a couple of ways you could.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm just concerned with the spreadsheet, that we get a spreadsheet that makes this whole evaluation process work smoothly.
Alana's husband's designing it.
That's good, since,
Excel,
you know.
right, and all the
Excel.
Yeah, everything,
you're gonna
you
put the
won't have to
numbers
do
in
this.
and-
All you have to do is for each applicant, you circle your number, 1, 2, 3, or 4. That gets entered into the spreadsheet, and it will do the calculation. You don't have to do the calculation.
Okay.
It will do the
All right, then I'm-
calculation.
then I'm very
and
happy,
we will
that's
find
fine.
Yeah, no, I worked
Do you
on
like
it, so, yeah.
You-
Yeah, I was part of the, I was part of the,
All right.
I was in on it.
The only thing I wanna, it just occurred to me is that, when the students, so, I assume it's Laura who puts the applicant name and assigns a number,
Yeah.
and then removes the cover sheet and
Yes.
puts the number on and copies it. She will have to also,
Not me either. I didn't-
remove the students' names from the letter of recommendation and in that
Yeah,
letter.
she'll have to redact it,
Yeah.
yeah.
A good amount of whiteout.
Exactly, yeah. So that, because that, I think that doing the best we can to read them anonymously, I think is really important.
I agree.
I agree.
Good job, guys.
So do you want to take a vote?
Okay, so the chair will entertain a motion to approve the revised Baker Adams Scholarship application as presented.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, I wanna, we have an invoice, from Mr. Luca, who was here this evening. So this didn't include his services for this evening.
I'm not sure.
Attend March 10th, and then analytical costs for soil
Okay.
samples from Gail,
Okay,
okay. The invoice is for $1,071.94.
Does it give hours?
$500 was the cost for him to attend the meeting.
Yeah.
And then
'Cause he-
we'll get
'cause he
another
tr- 'cause
bill
he
from-
travels from the Cape.
So it was a
So
$500
there's a
flat
travel
rate.
time.
Right. I
And then
remember that.
analytical cost for soil samples is $571.94, and it doesn't that's all it gives.
But we could ask him, you know, to break it down, like how much does he get an hour? You know, I mean, if that's important. We could certainly, I mean, I think you can approve it tonight, but I think in the
Yeah.
future, we could ask him for that information. I think he'd be fine.
I would agree.
How are we
It's
paying
a
for it?
standard.
How are we
Is it
paying
gonna
for it?
be
Well,
through a change order, like Mike had suggested, or if we just pay
I don't-
for it out of our budget?
I don't know, I think that's I think we had agreed that things were gonna come out of the budget, I mean, out of the
Project?
project budget.
Mm.
But, I don't know. I mean, I don't think our budget would be able, if he has to come out multiple times, or he's, you know, they're having these conversations with Gail, I mean, that cost could go up pretty quickly.
Well, if that's 1,000, I could see him easily coming back at 5
Total.
with another bill for 5.
I think it's part of, I mean,
So,
It is part of
the
the
selectmen,
project.
it's part of the project.
oh, it's no, I totally
Yeah,
part of the project.
Yeah, it is part of the project. The problem is
Problem is
that there was no wiggle room in the budget for it.
There goes a
So if you figure
seat
the,
of this, one of the stands.
if you, I mean, no, it's true, that's what will happen, it just, you know, that budget for that turf field is very tight.
Yeah.
They really had an originally like a $1.5 million project that, you know, because of the available
No, I
money
know,
was
I
1.2,
understand, Carol, but
so
why
now
aren't
we're,
they here? Like,
who's they?
the,
West Stack Committee?
yeah.
So what did you ask me, why aren't they here?
Right, why aren't they being included in these conversations? We're including the selectmen, but
Right.
they also,
Right. Right.
No,
I
staff,
did,
staff,
I did
staff.
send a note to
Okay.
Lindsay, who schedules the meeting, and said, we are gonna need a stack meeting because we're gonna need to talk about the implications of this on the project. So that's already in the works, you know, that's all, but again, as I said, I don't think wouldn't have felt comfortable sharing the results with the stack committee before I shared them with the school committee.
No, and I
So-
appreciate that.
So that's why I didn't, you know, I mean, Gail was dogging him, and I said to him, we'll give him the information on Thursday.
Mhm.
And I responded to Lindsay today, and I gave her the information. I said, you need to talk with Jim. But he was avoiding her. You saw that. He was avoiding her.
He's getting 4th.
So, you know, I think it's just a courtesy, right? And that's why it was great that the Board of Select, when I mentioned it to Mike, he said, well, we're already meeting, you know, can we join you? So, you know.
That was good.
So it all, you know, it's just putting all the puzzle
because
pieces
it's,
together.
that's gonna be hard. I know.
It's, oh yeah,
gonna be really
but that's
hard,
why the
but
stack
you
guys
don't-
aren't here. We will notify the stack people of the results, and we will engage them in a conversation about, okay, here's what it looks like, it's gonna need to be done.
I wonder if any of them watched tonight.
They might.
They could have.
I bet
Yeah.
they are, are you
Yeah.
kidding? If they knew this was on the agenda.
Well, I don't know that they did.
Yeah, I don't know that they
Because
did
remember,
either.
I mean, we built the agenda, and that's why we had all these people come in, and I think we all felt bad about making them wait. But if we missed the opportunity to get this
Right.
presentation from Jim
Right.
tonight, you know, it was gonna become a problem.
Mm-hmm.
It was fortuitous, we had a meeting scheduled.
Okay, so just approving the invoice, to
Yeah,
me,
you have
it
to
doesn't
approve it
matter
anyway.
where it comes from, where the money comes from, we're just gonna approve it.
You're gonna approve it, and then we would do what we did with the last one, which is to
We send
submit it to,
To CPC.
Yeah.
Okay, so the chair will entertain a motion to approve invoice number 8540 from Green Seal Environmental, Inc. in the amount of $1,071.94, dated March 27, 2014, as presented.
So moved.
Second.
just in
Just a
discussion,
little
I
discussion,
think one of
yeah.
the things I spoke to Jim about this, I said, you know, Jim, I don't think we want any surprises. So you really need to give us an estimate, a cost estimate of what you think this is gonna cost.
Sure.
So that we have the opportunity to know. So he did send me a note saying, so the cost for the meeting, to come out to the meeting tonight will be the same as the cost for the last meeting. So, you know, we knew that in advance.
Right.
But I don't wanna see us all of a sudden have a,
Yeah.
you know, a $20,000 bill and no one's expecting it.
Mhm.
So I would like him to estimate what his work is gonna be and get a proposal together.
Well, and in keeping that, just for my own clarity, my understanding is he will be coming back to us with these costs that you're talking
Oh,
about.
absolutely, yeah.
And that's our
Mhm.
special meeting that we get
That's the
together on.
special meeting, that's right.
And then the $1,000 you said gets passed on to CPC, that's then coming out of the project budget?
That's right.
Okay.
Because remember, the GAA money is only paying for
The turf
the
budget.
turf, but everything else is coming out of
Correct.
CPC.
They're paying for the turf and the installation, right? All the rest is site work.
Yep, yep.
That's what this
Yep.
is site.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, I'll take that, yes. Joan will take it.
And we have an approval of policy IHAM.
Yes, and,
IH?
yeah, and Laura gives you the new version and highlights.
Right.
Yeah. So this is per your policy, these aren't new policies, these are just modifications, so you don't need to go through the three-step process.
So the chair will entertain a motion to approve revised policy file IHAM, health education as presented.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I thought this was already a policy, but I'm glad it is now.
Okay, so.
Oh, it's just the wording has changed slightly.
Yeah. So approval of revised policy IHBA, programs for students with disabilities.
That's just to correct the typo.
Okay.
Nothing
Right.
else has changed.
So moved.
I noticed that.
So, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, there's one in the back.
Yep, one in the back. I thought there was, in there. There's
Where's- oh, no, that's the
IHBA, or
one.
is
No,
that,
there's
the-
old
that's the, oh, they're on, the
versions
okay,
there.
oh, the old and the new,
Yeah.
got it, got it.
Offer. Offer.
That's right. Thank
Okay,
you.
so now the superintendent's evaluation
Yeah,
timeline.
so we have two evaluations that we do every year. One is of me and the other is you evaluate yourself. So maybe the easier one to do is to start with the one on yourselves. So, you know, I said to Laura, uh-oh, we gotta get this in the packet because obviously we're gonna run out of time. So, she's proposing, I guess we're talking about using the same evaluation form you've used in the past. So if we distribute the blank evaluation forms to the school committee, which are not in the packet tonight, but we can get them to you, you know, via email. By April 11th, usually what happens is the completed forms are submitted to the school committee secretary and then forwarded to the chair. Usually someone on the committee agrees to sort of put the report together, you know, so put the numbers together. And it says the chair here, but it doesn't have to be Barbie. It could be anybody that wants to take that on. And then by the 18th, it would all be ready so that it could be distributed in your packets and then discussed at the meeting. So that,
Okay.
if that works for people, then we can do that, just get you the forms, and we can work with the timeline.
Okay, so the forms we could get by early next week?
Yeah, I mean, I think the forms, you know, it's just a matter of, you
Getting them
know,
to us.
when Laura comes back, you know, that'll be something, but yeah, I think if you could expect them on Monday,
Okay.
I think, yeah, she could definitely arrange that.
Total, yeah.
Okay, so does that
Okay.
work? So you wanna approve that
Sure.
process?
The chair will entertain a motion to approve the superintendent's evaluation.
No, the school
Oh,
committee evaluation.
Oh,
I know, it's confusing, 'cause so we're gonna talk about the superintendent one in a minute, but we should
Okay.
probably do the school committee
okay,
first.
so the chair will entertain a motion to approve the school committee self-evaluation process timeline as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Great. Okay, and finally, so I need a little help on this because, you know, usually we start this earlier, and obviously the form is different this year, right? So, I don't know if, I guess I wanna know what kind of information would you like to see? So I can put together a portfolio that basically, you know, identifies areas in each of the things and puts some documents in as, examples. And then you can come in and chat with me about the portfolio, I could do that. I can do a self-evaluation just of in each area and put some bullets down as to what I think meets that criteria without doing a portfolio. Or I can meet with each of you and we can talk about the various things and you can ask me questions and I can answer questions and then you make a reading. There's lots of ways to do it, but it's a short timeline. So I just wanna, I think what's been important in the past, I think for both me and for individual members, is that we have sort of expected that there be a face-to-face conversation. We haven't always filled out the forms, you know, the same way, but, you know, that way there's no surprises, right? And it's an education, right? So you might say, well, I don't really, how could you see me every day? You know what you know, right? And I try to keep you informed, but, you know, if there was something particular that you'd wanna know, then we'd have a chance to talk about that. I'm happy to provide you with some kind of documentation. I just would like to kind of hear what you'd like, because I don't want to go through the process of doing a big portfolio and then have it be something that's really not useful to you. But I'm happy to do it if you find it would be useful. I'm happy to do a self-evaluation where I look at each of the things and just make a bulleted list of what I think fits into that, so that you can say, okay, that makes sense. I'm happy to do it in whatever way works for you, so you feel like you can contribute to the evaluation in a way that you feel represents how you're feeling.
Just for myself,
Yeah.
I think just a bullet list of the components, and then a face-to-face with me, and they'll come in there with.
And if there's something
looking
you
at
feel
this
like
and
you'd like to, you have me prepare for you, so that I can, you know, like Rob might say, well, gee, you know, what's an example of, you know, the way you know, work with your administrative team? Give me an example of an agenda and some minutes. Happy to do that. You know, there's usually documentation for most of it, but sometimes there isn't. So I would talk you through the process on that. But if there's something in particular that you feel like, oh, gee, I'd like to get more information about that, I can do that for you.
And that's
Well, when you say, yeah, that would be fine. When you say the word portfolio, or to me, it sounds like it would be a lot of work for
Mhm.
you to do. I would be fine too with the same
Yeah.
thing that Rob,
Okay.
like, I don't wanna put it
Okay.
down as like a portfolio, cause it sounds so,
I agree, it sounds.
yeah, I don't think I don't.
Okay, well, again.
Do you wanna hear from us individually about our concerns, or do you want something?
Yeah, I mean,
now,
generally, that's
or-
what we
Yeah,
do,
I
is
think
we, you know,
individual
people say,
meeting
oh,
would be
these,
good.
and you know, if
Yeah,
there's
no,
some
I'd love to
suggestions that you'd like to, you know, make, say, well, gee, I'd like to see a little more of this, or, you know, then certainly, you know, it's always an opportunity for growth, you know, I mean, of course, everybody loves to hear the great stuff, but, you know, I
Right.
work with my administrators too, and we're always talking, you know, about, you know, suggestions, and sometimes they're little, you know, sometimes it's just, well, you know, gee, this is great, but, you know, it'd be great to have a little bit more of this, you know, or I'd like you to, you know, provide me with more of this kind of information. Happy to do that.
How I get better in my work is from my mistakes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We all do.
Absolutely.
So it's, I mean, in the right environment, we learn from our mistakes, right?
Always the tricky thing about, you know, superintendent's evaluations is they're public. You know, it's a public meeting. It's, you know, because, I mean, it'd be one thing if you could give me feedback and then, you know, we keep it amongst ourselves. So, you know, again, I think I would just want to do it in a way that's, you know, fair to everyone and reflects, you know, our work, what we feel needs to be, that's going really well, and what ideas people have, you know, for growth or for changes. I'm definitely open to that.
So that as well, the forms we can expect next week? Monday?
So, yes, because you approved the different format,
Yeah.
right? So you could, so let's see, so the forms are distributed, so you could look at what the areas are.
Mhm.
And I certainly, we could certainly provide, you know, what each of the standards is looking for, I guess, right? And then you could, so then if you just give me a few days to make the bulleted lists, that's why I built that in there, because, you know, I need some time to make the lists. If I don't have to create a portfolio, that'll help. But if we could start the meeting, you know, you make a meeting with me sometime between the 7th and the 18th.
So that gives you enough time.
Yeah, so
to do
so it gives me like
Yeah.
from tonight to the 7th anyway, to do some
Right.
stuff, to get ready. And then we can have a chat during that period
So
of
that
time.
allows, you think that that's doable for you?
I'll make that work. I'll make that work. And then same thing, the forms are due on the 18th, and then, or do so we can get them out on the 18th. Because I think usually I think what the process calls for is that the individual members do their evaluation, and then they go to the chair. And then what really gets presented in public is not the individual evaluations, it's the composite.
Right,
It's a
and then we each
composite.
kind of said,
That's
we
right.
each were given a little time during the meeting to
Exactly.
just say.
Yes, exactly, but it's a composite.
Mhm.
So what this basically says is that, you know, on the 18th, which would be normally when you get your packet, so you might not see it in your packet is the point, right? So, because we have a shortened timeline here, like, let's say Barbie puts it together, she may send it out to you, whatever, you know,
Yeah.
just remember, you can't deliberate, you can only comment to Barbie. Don't put it out to everybody
Reply
else.
all.
And then, she will get the composite, and then she'll read it into the record. Obviously, she'll share it with me beforehand.
Of course.
Cause that's how we've always done it. But, you know, on the 24th, it'll be, public evaluation.
I think that timeline.
Does that
looks
work
good.
okay? Cause I realize it is a shortened timeline, but I was trying to find something that might work for all of us.
Yeah.
And appreciate the consideration of not necessarily have to drag up a bunch of, you know, things out and put them together. But I certainly wanna give you whatever information you need, so just be in touch about that.
Okay. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the superintendent's evaluation process timeline as presented.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I think,
We just need a very
Yep,
brief,
I think-
very brief executive session.
okay, so, we will be going into executive session, chapter 30A, section 21, paragraph 3, union personnel, and we will not be returning to, open session.
Roll call.
Roll call. Yes,
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
good night.
I think